580 KIDO. It is the big night before the big debates. Of course, we apologize for not having our debate watch party. Couldn't really pull it off. We are working to have a vice presidential debate watch party, but we want to make sure that you had plenty of time, plenty of notice. I know our friend Pat from Middleton and Cowboy Calvin are disappointed, and we're very sorry. Look, like a great coach, I will say that I have let you down, and that we're not going to blame the team. We're not going to blame anybody else, but maybe next time. But why not watch it in your home? And, of course, you can yell at the TV. And, of course, we'll take your calls tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a challenging day for all of us, just based on the fact that it is September 11th. And as the media may forget, September 11th, 2001, as long as we're alive, as long as we're here, we will remember September 11th. So it will be a challenging show because we will, again, remind you of what happened on September 11th, 2001. 23 years ago, in addition to the reaction from the debate. I haven't figured out how we're going to do that, but we will do that, and we will be on our way. Joining us now is our great friend, Congressman Fulcher. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Great to talk to you today.
Great to talk to you. Before we get rolling on a lot of things going on in Washington and in Idaho, your thoughts on September 11th, if you could share where you were that day and 23 years later.
Yeah, there's not too many days that you can look back on, 20 plus years ago and say, okay, I remember specifically where I was, but that's one of them, and I do. I had just returned from Long Island, New York. I was on a business trip. I was supposed to still be there, and that was on Long Island, which is not exactly where the Twin Towers were, but I'd come home early because a storm was coming up the coast, and it looked like it could be a nasty one, and I didn't want to get cobbed up in the airports and delayed flights and all that. So I came home a little bit early. I was in Boise in my office, Preco Electronics at the time, when that took place, and I watched the whole thing unfold on television in front of me in my office. And then we actually just stopped production that day, and we pulled a TV on a large cart into the cafeteria area where people could congregate in a large area and put that on. And we put a pause on our manufacturing and just watched that action unfold there, and with a very solemn feeling in the place. And that was what happened in my life on that particular day.
And what, if anything, have we learned 23 years later?
I don't know. I can tell you one of the things that I certainly feel is we lost a lot of freedoms that day, because that led to what was eventually called the Patriot Act, which I believe was part and parcel to authorizing the federal government to surveil and investigate and do a lot of unaccountable things against Americans, not just those who are threatening Americans. And of course, at the time, I guess I understand to a little bit of a degree why that was done. And it was pitched on the House floor and the Senate floor is, look, we got to do this. We got to put all these measures in place to protect this from ever happening again, and so on and so forth. Well, the problem is that it wasn't Americans that did that. It was a hostile foreign force. And so lost a lot of freedoms that day. And, having been a frequent traveler prior to 9/11, for example, and a frequent flyer after 9/11, I'll tell you what, it's got a lot more complicated. I'm not sure it's got a lot more safer, but it's got a lot more complicated. The information that you and I have on mobile phones and in electronic databases everywhere is now subject to search without us even knowing about it, and there's not a whole lot we can do. And so, that's maybe that's a selfish way of looking at that, but that's my first impressions. And I don't know that we're a whole lot safer now, Kevin, than we were beforehand. I mean, look what we've done with the southern border. We've opened that up to where there's virtually a free-for-all coming through the border. But yet, when you're an American, you want to jump on an airplane, you get a cavity search, or you're subject to it, it seems like, on a frequent basis. So a lot of freedoms lost as a result of that.
Well, and of course, it led to the global war on terror, led to Iraq, Afghanistan, our withdrawal from Afghanistan, which leads us into, obviously, how much are people buzzing? I know they're buzzing here in Idaho, but in Washington over tonight's big debate.
I think there's going to be a lot of attention on it, and there should be. And I know there's going to be a number of watch parties in D.C. Some members are going to be getting together watching this. But I don't think we're going to see a tremendous number of surprises, Kevin. It'll probably be somewhat entertaining. Trump's going to be Trump. And I wouldn't be shocked if, he hands Vice President Harris a MAGA hat or a set of flip-flops or something like that. He's rumored to say, I'm going to give her a gift. Well, I don't know what that means. But, so far the Harris campaign has been out and about complaining about the immigration situation, inflation, foreign wars, all that kind of stuff. Well, Kamala Harris is Vice President of the United States. It's not Donald Trump. So she's the one out complaining and bringing to the American people all these wrongs. And she's the one who's in charge right now. And so I think that the formula in terms of the debate is really pretty simple for Donald Trump. And I think he's going to pick up on it. He just needs to focus on her record. And he needs to focus on a lot of the things that she has flip-flopped around on. I mean, Medicare for all. If you want to do a single-payer healthcare system, replace private insurance. He wanted to defund the police. Of course, she's been, a champion for the open border. She's changed her position on fracking. So, those are just some examples. If he just focuses on those things and then contrasts that with what was done under his administration, I think that's all he's got to do. I kind of hope that he doesn't go too personal because I know that has a tendency to come across wrong to a lot of voters. His demographic in the female vote arena is not that strong. I think generally speaking, the female voters don't appreciate that. A lot of voters don't. So I hope he doesn't go real personal on stuff. But you know what? He's not calling me for any count, so I can tell you that.
Right. Our great friend, Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, I was watching your social media, and I guess you were at a gold mine either last week or the week before. And I mean, did you go into these mines when you were talking about people? Obviously, people know, or if they don't, you're on Natural Resources Committee, also Energy Committee. So this is very vital. Obviously, gold is very important. But what was that like? We talked a little bit about meeting the miners face to face and eye to eye, but going into these places, if you did.
Great experience. The Golden Chest Mine up in Kellogg, or just outside of Kellogg, Idaho, Silver Valley. Incredible experience. There is a gold mine there. It's actually permitted on private land, so that they can actually do something with it, and they are. Incredible experience, Kevin. We get on these four-wheel drive ATVs, and then you start weaving through these.
Wait a minute, you were on the four-wheel. You didn't have the Secret Service or your staff driving you. You were.
No, I got a hard hat. That was about it. So anyway, we rolled in there. Of course, it's just pitch black, and you've got these pumps running all the time because you're under the water table, right? And so if you don't have these water pumps running, you're just in a flooded cavern the entire time. So we weave back and forth through these caverns and into the area that they call the wall, which is where they're actually they're digging and they're advancing, following the veins and advancing the mine. Man, just an incredible experience. You got these guys who have these air jack hammers that bang through that rock, and incredible amount of physical work to do that. And then you've got the team right behind them that's putting up these stakes to make sure that things don't cave in, and they've got all these safety precautions and everything. But you look up with, you've got a helmet with a light on it. You look up and you see, well, there's gold. You can see where, you can actually physically see it with your naked eye in a relatively distinct fashion. It's okay, well, that's why we're here. And but it's a very safe operation, very good operation. The miners at that particular mine go home every night They don't have to stay on these long shifts, but it's manual labor. They have to haul that stuff out and, of course, process it. And this is one of those things where unless you're there, unless you talk to these guys and watch what they do on a routine basis, it's you don't have a good understanding for it. But it's very environmentally friendly. You would never even know there was a mine there unless you went inside, and so they take care of that very, very well. They're very responsible with it. And, they're subject, like everything else. They're subject to the market price of gold, whatever it is. And sometimes they make money, sometimes they don't. Right now they're making money. And so big risk, a lot of investment, a lot of safety precautions, an incredible operation.
Yeah, again, I'm a little wimp here. So going under the water table in a four-wheeler and you've got your hard hat on, I don't know about that, sir.
Yeah, you want to make sure the batteries are good in that light, because this is one of those things where it's not for the faint of heart. It was interesting too, Kevin. They were explaining to me. I got to meet the crew. My staff was with me as well. We got to meet the crew. Almost every one of those crew members were multi-generational miners, and so it was like father sons. We're still working together. Granddad used to do it. It really neat kind of a family history, and it has a tendency. You grow up doing that, and you get used to that. That's part of your lifestyle. You're just like anything else. Farming is often that way, and some of the life in rural Idaho. But it was really neat to see the camaraderie. A lot of family-oriented stuff there. Everybody knew each other incredibly well. Just a neat experience that you're not going to find that in New York City, or you're not going to find that in most places of California. So yeah, pretty cool.
Our great friend Congressman Fulcher joining us. Congressman, before we get to the battle over the CR, the continuing resolution, let's talk about natural resources. Let's talk about energy. You guys are back to work. Obviously, we want to make sure that we have enough energy. And here's the weird thing that's been going on in Boise. There have been blackouts lately. There haven't been storms or anything, but there have just been blackouts, and you're going, what the heck is going on? You can't, the other day during the Balloon Classic, we lost power, and you're going, obviously energy is so important to all of us, and we don't want any of that to happen, whether it's just a routine or something that could be preventable.
I don't know what particularly caused the blackouts at this time, but I can tell you what some of it around the state was. And that has to do with the wildfires that are burning somewhere in the neighborhood of 323 to 350,000 acres right now, by the way. Not that I'm counting. But when these wildfires hit, oftentimes they're in a region of power lines. And as a result of what happened not long ago in California, and where the power lines were instrumental in Maui, Hawaii, where the power lines actually were part and parcel to a rapid expansion of the wildfire problem, the utilities have shut that off. And I get why they do that, because they don't want to be liable for problems and exacerbating those problems. But at the same time, at least in Maui, Hawaii, and Lahaina, when that happened, they also shut off the power to the pumps that would arguably have gotten that fire out quicker as well. And so it's a double-edged sword with how all that works. But the bottom line is wildfire is at least one reason why power gets shut off. And just another reason to get into the federal lands discussion. We need to manage this land more responsibly, keep that fuel load down, so on and so forth. But that's at least one of the reasons, Kevin. I know probably there was some regional work that was being done, had to do with, Idaho is growing so fast, they're trying to expand services, and so that's part of the world that we live in right now, and some of the things we're confronted with on the availability of energy.
Our great friend, Congressman Fulcher, joining us here. Obviously, I don't think we're getting our lands back under the Harris administration.
Not under the Harris administration. You know, if we just had the ability to have more local stakeholder control, and we've made some progress, at least in the years since I've been here. We have made some progress on that. Not nearly what we need to, but it's like any other resource. If you take care of it, we have more blessings under our feet than you can possibly imagine, but you have to take care of it. You've got to be responsible stewards. You need to be environmentally friendly. And nobody can do that better than the people that live and work on the land. And that's right here locally in Idaho. So you're right. It's not going to happen under the Harris administration, hopefully, with the right leadership in the White House and also in Congress, we can make some improvements on that under a new administration.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Lots of information today, so let's get to it. We've had some reports that it might be a challenge for the Speaker to avoid a shutdown or the talks of a shutdown. Where are you? You're right in the middle of these negotiations about keeping the government rolling.
Going on every day, and it's what's going to be in front of us is a continuing resolution to continue to fund the government. The proposal coming out of the House will be to do it and authorize it through March of 2025 so that a pending administration will have a set number that they can operate under throughout the transition, potentially, of a new administration. And we want to be careful about that because if, for example, there was a lame duck presidency and there wasn't a budget set, that goes into the next administration, then that can open up a lot of spending shenanigans in the short term. So that's why the date, at least on the House version, is going to be through March of 2025. It also has as a contingency in there that what's called the SAVE Act that says in terms of our voting procedures, you have to be able to exhibit proof of citizenship before you vote. And that's where a lot of the controversy is coming. Believe it or not, the current Democrat side is adamantly opposed to that. Some Republicans may be as well. And so it's mind-blowing to me, but nevertheless, that is a factor. Another one that's significant to some is what's called the COLA, cost of living increases. That is reauthorized for federal employees, except for members of Congress. Members of Congress are not eligible for the COLA, and that rubs some people the wrong way. But there hasn't been a change in congressional pay for 13, 15 years, something like that, and some people are distraught over that. But that's pretty difficult to do when you've got a $35 trillion debt politically. So those are some of the things that's part of that CR. I think the House is likely to pass this version. Then it's going to get stuck in the Senate, and it's going to either go to a revised version or some kind of what's called a conference committee to get the thing solved. But that's what is on the docket on the House floor right now.
Yeah, it never goes over for pay raises for the people of your ilk, sir. We apologize for that, but I think you can relate to why people get upset about that.
That is true, and so I don't look for that to happen anytime soon.
Obviously on the international front, apparently our law enforcement officials foiled a plot to have some bad things happen in New York on October 8th, the anniversary of what happened with Israel and Hamas, October 7th, October 8th, that whole first week of October. Your thoughts on a possible terror attack is celebrating the atrocities that Hamas committed against Israel?
When this whole thing changed most recently, Kevin, was when our current administration started doing more and more trade with Iran, in particular for oil and those types of resources. And what that did was pump a tremendous amount of American money into the Iranian coffers. And so Iran flush with cash means terrorism being spread, because that's what they do with it. And so we have ourselves and our current administration to thank, at least in part with that, because, again, if they have money, they're going to use it for bad things. And so hence the funding by Iran to Hamas, to Hezbollah, which is that's the basis for where a lot of these terroristic attacks come from. And so, we can shut a lot of that off just by shutting off the revenue stream to Iran. But for whatever reason, this administration can't figure that out. And but that's kind of the root of the most recent issues there. Then there's, of course, the anti-Semitism component of that goes back millennia, and so that's also one of those things. It's just unfortunate. You can't possibly explain, at least I can't, without a biblical perspective, because that doesn't make sense any other way. But we are in the fallout zone as a function of that. If there is good news, to be honest, it's predictable, and we kind of know where to look right now, where the terrorism is to come from. So at least we have a few tools where we can know where to look and oftentimes see what's coming before it hits. So it looks like that's what happened recently in New York.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Anything else that we should be aware of, sir, that we missed?
On the floor, in addition to the CR this week, Kevin, is a lot of stuff relating to China. Some restrictions on Chinese land purchases within the U.S. That's been something that's been a problem. There's been some state action, as you know, in the Idaho legislature on this over a recent couple of years. There's going to be federal action on that, and that's going to be on this week. Similarly, with Chinese funding of higher ed in U.S. universities and some of the outcomes of that. You've heard of Confucius Institute and some of that kind of thing, and that's what that's done basically is opened up the door for a lot of Chinese activity within American higher education that has ultimately resulted in losing intelligence information, because they fund things, get access to certain things, and the next thing you know, you got you're losing intellectual property coming out of MIT or things like that. So you're going to see that on the House floor. Energy and Commerce, we're working on the rural broadband stuff, trying to see what's necessary to improve the access to broadband in rural areas. Idaho is a prime example. Natural resource, NEPA reform, trying to study some of those things. What can we do to make it so that the Golden Chest Mine and others that are responsible environmental resource-based operations can actually do something and not have to go through a 20-year permitting process. Nothing too serious, Kevin, but just a few little minor topics to keep us busy for a little while.
Makes you want to go back to the gold mine.
That's right. Yep. And I don't know if I can run that air jack, but that would be a great way of life if you can handle it.
Words to live by. Congressman Fulcher, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Have a great day.
You as well. Our great friend, Congressman Fulcher. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. The big debate tonight. Are you ready? A lot of people are. A lot of people are breaking it down.
Arkansas's Governor Sarah Sanders joins me now.
And from the Liberal Show from Liberal ABC News this week, here is Sarah Sanders.
Governor Sanders, thank you for being here. And people may not realize this, but as I understand it, you actually played Kamala Harris in the debate prep for the vice presidential debate 4 years ago. Isn't that right?
I did. It's been quite a while. I'd almost actually forgotten that I had that role and participated. But it was very difficult to get in that mindset, but was glad to be helpful in the process and glad to see this debate finally take place and see this matchup between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I think it is really important for the American people to see the big contrast that exists between these two candidates.
And I want to get to what Liz Cheney had to say in her endorsement. But before I get to that, on the debate, what do you think the stakes are? How important is this for former President Trump?
Well, I think it's actually more important for Vice President Harris, somebody who doesn't speak to the media, doesn't take questions. In fact, at the end of this interview, John, I will have done more interviews during this election cycle than she has since becoming the Democrat nominee for president. It is absurd that she does not take questions from the press, from the American people. And so I think this is actually a much more important night for her, because it's so rare that we hear from her, that we hear her take questions, or that we know anything that she actually stands for.
Much more coming up next. Dylan Hausman will join us from the Daily Caller. Keep it here. Stay informed. We'd love to hear from you next.
KIDO.
And let's get you to work safely and on time. A little faster with the traffic. KIDO Talk Radio Traffic. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studio, traffic on the freeway, 84 east and westbound in good shape. Inbound on the connector right there at the Chinden on-ramp, you do have a vehicle that went over the edge. So you have some emergency vehicles right there on the connector, so be aware of that. Could delay it just a bit if you're trying to get on there at Chinden. Direct orthopedic care for sprains, strains, and breaks. Skip the ER and go directly to Doc. Drop in without an appointment to one of 5 Treasure Valley locations. Visit BoiseDoc.com to learn more. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
Joining us here in Idaho.
Always glad to be here.
Well, here we go. I mean, what else is there to talk about but what's going to happen tonight in Philadelphia? Obviously, a lot on the line, and I can't even do it justice by, fumbling to get you to the content. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only story anybody wants to talk about the news today for good reason. People used to say presidential debates don't matter that much, and then we saw what happened with the last one. So now suddenly I think we all know there's a lot at stake, and it's going to be interesting to watch. This is going to be the biggest moment of Kamala Harris's campaign, of her political career so far. People have talked about the expectations for her, whether they're too low, whether the bar is at the floor with people, not really thinking she's a great public speaker and things like that. But the reason she's in the race is because her predecessor did so poorly at the debate, and because he was unable to articulate the Democratic case for why they want to win the White House. So I think the expectations should be pretty high. I think that she has a lot to prove and a lot on the line tonight, and people should be looking for, if you're a Democrat, people should be looking for a good performance for her, because if she doesn't come through with a good performance, what was the point of doing all this and replacing Joe Biden with her in the first place?
It is interesting to see how it's going to play out. Do you think the developing story out of Springfield, Ohio will make it in tonight?
That seems like one of those things to me where, it might be a quick line that gets tossed in by Trump. I don't expect there to be a question about it. The mainstream media, this debate being moderated by ABC, and they may do a decent job. We'll see. Who knows? But it doesn't seem like the kind of story that the mainstream media is going to want to highlight, at least at this early stage of it kind of developing. But it is something where I wouldn't be shocked at all if you see Trump, when the question of immigration comes up, Trump to say, well, look at what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. Look at all these, tens of thousands of migrants that have been resettled there, and they're, allegedly eating geese in the park, and they're causing car accidents and all these things going on. It wouldn't shock me at all if it comes up. And there's so much material to go to on the immigration issue that Trump could bring up that would be problematic for Kamala Harris, that it wouldn't shock me at all if that's one piece of it.
Well, and then not to get too specific, but then on the other hand, you have this troubling situation in Colorado and Aurora that the Venezuelan gangs are taking over apartment complexes. We have it on video, and imagine if this were the Trump administration, what would be going on?
Yeah, with it with the Trump administration, one, the response to it would probably be a lot different than what we're seeing, but two, it would be blasted all over the place. It would be on the front page of every news website, every nightly news broadcast. But something that's interesting to think about with these stories, as you just mentioned, 2 places, Springfield, Ohio, and Aurora, Colorado. Those are not, we're not talking about El Paso, Texas here. These are not border towns. These are not places that you would think would be the most impacted by immigration or refugees or migrants coming across the border or being brought in by NGOs and things like that. These are places, hundreds, thousands of miles from the southern border that people are having their communities overrun and being affected in their day-to-day lives by this issue. And I think the more, there's only a couple of months till the election comes, but the more these kind of stories pop up and people realize that, just because I live, inland, just because I live in the middle of the country in the Midwest or in the Mountain West, I'm not living in a border town, I'm not living in Arizona or Texas, that this issue can still affect me in a serious way. I think a lot of people already knew that if you're paying close attention, But now we're after Labor Day, more normal people that aren't, watching politics all the time or tuning into this stuff, and now they're starting to realize that too. And it depends how salient the Trump campaign can make that issue, but if they can, it's going to be more of a problem for the Democrats leading up to Election Day.
Dylan Hausman joining us, managing editor for the Daily Caller. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Back to how do you think this is going to play tonight with David Moore and the other folks from Liberal ABC?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of pressure on moderators leading up to the debate, pressure to not be biased, pressure to not be too in the tank for Harris, and that kind of working of the referees seemed to work well for the Trump campaign leading up to the first debate with Joe Biden. I think we could see a similar thing play out here where there's been so much focus on the media not really doing their job when it relates to the Harris campaign and her flip-flopping and the position she's taken, that they might not be as in the tank as they might like to be for her because they know that people are going to be watching and there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on how they do. But you know how these things go. It's going to be, the framing of questions is going to be slanted in a particular way. The terminology that gets used is going to be framed in a particular way. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Harris. The moderators are not going to be able to save her, and the moderators are not going to be able to save Trump either from some of his impulses. And I think the debate rules being set up the way they are might help Trump with the mics being cut off and some of the other rules that are in place might help Trump be a little more reserved and ultimately put Harris on the spot where she has to defend herself and she's the focal point, and it's not going to be about the moderators or about Trump. It's going to be about her. She's the undefined candidate. She's the one that is kind of new. She's not new to the scene in the sense that she's been vice president, but she's new to the scene in the sense that a lot of Americans don't really know what she stands for and what she believes, and so she's going to be the focal point. The moderators are not going to want to be the story, I don't think, and there'll be their usual, nonsense here or there with certain questions, I'm sure, but I don't think it's going to be too egregious because people are going to be, on the lookout for that in a big way.
Dylan, let's go to Harris herself. Is she really as bad? And look, this is what I love about the Daily Caller is, you tell it like it is. There's a lot of people on networks, they just regurgitate the same talking points and stuff, but is she really as big of a problem as she's been positioned on conservative media?
It's interesting because it's kind of an impossible question to answer, in my opinion. You see people, certain people in conservative media saying, oh, she's a socialist, she believes this or that, all these things. And, you could pick out certain policy positions of hers that certainly make that case. I mean, Medicare for all, wanting price controls on groceries, all these types of things. Certainly fit that box, but at the same time, she's so undefined and just blows with the wind all the time. It's almost hard to pin down exactly how big of a problem she is. And to answer your question specifically, I think it makes it even worse, actually, in a way, because we saw this with Joe Biden to some degree, actually. I know people that were, kind of middle-of-the-road voters, suburban swing voters who gave Joe Biden a chance because they thought, he's running as a moderate. He's this old white guy. Like, he's been in government for 50 years. Like, he can't be that crazy. Like, he's not Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. So we'll give him a shot. And then he gets into office and governs in a completely different way. And, who knows if it's really him governing or the people around him like Kamala Harris governing. And so I think that kind of chameleon strategy of let's present one thing and then end up being in office and doing another thing is less likely to work now because we kind of saw it with Joe Biden and now with Kamala Harris. It's, you can pin certain policies to her that are extreme, that are radical, and a lot of conservative media, as you alluded to, have done that. But at the same time, she's talking out of both sides of her mouth constantly. So you really don't know what you're going to get with her in office, except that it kind of ranges anywhere from kind of liberal to extremely liberal. And, given how things have gone the last 4 years, I don't know if that's what the country really wants right now.
Dylan, anything else we should be looking out for?
Well, we'll have ongoing debate coverage tonight at the Daily Caller, and I think something we'll be looking out for is are we going to get any more specific policy prescriptions or ideas from her? That's something we've been covering a lot. We've been trying to figure out where does she actually stand on things. We've been looking at her past positions, things she said or written from years ago that she's kind of run away from and trying to pin down where she stands. And so I think that's something we've been covering a lot and something we'll be watching tonight to see if, when these questions do come up, which they eventually will, Is she going to be more platitudes and generalities, or are we going to get any more specifics? I guess we'll see.
And finally, are you a Charlotte guy or a Raleigh guy?
I grew up just outside of Charlotte, so
right.
no beef with Raleigh. I'm a Hurricanes fan, like the hockey team. That's all great. I lived there briefly, but I'm a Charlotte guy for sure.
Well, you Charlotte people listening to the great WBT. And, of course, now what side of Charlotte? Near South Carolina or the other side of Charlotte?
On the north, so
Okay.
kind of near Concord, near where the racetrack is. About probably 30, 45 minutes from South Carolina. So north side of Charlotte, but definitely a Charlotte guy.
Yeah, you grew up with all the NASCAR people, amongst many others.
Yes. A lot of neighbors in the industry of racing cars for sure. It's definitely a good time.
Dylan Hausman, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me as always.
All right, appreciate Dylan Hausman joining us from the Daily Caller. Concord, North Carolina is where all the NASCAR teams are based, for those of you that love NASCAR. All right, we love the politics. We'd love to hear from you. 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
KIDO Talk Radio. Waking up on the right side. This is the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
You know, she said, day one, we're going to fight inflation and immigration. Day one was January 20th, 2021. What do you mean on day one? And then for 3 years, she lied about inflation, that it was transitory, lied about immigration, said the border was secure, and said, well, we haven't been to the border, called out by Lester Holt. Well, I haven't been to Europe either. She's now on record saying she will raise the corporate taxes, small business taxes, will put in a wealth tax and a state tax, capital gains taxes to unprecedented rates that'll destroy investment in this country. Even Mark Cuban recognizes that. Unrealized capital gains. That would be a depression for this country.
From coast to coast, from sea to shining sea, it's the Sean Hannity Show.
War, inflation, and recession. Did you know that experts call gold the everything hedge? Gold goes far beyond hedging against inflation or the stock market. It can potentially even guard you against today's wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. Not to mention the great economic danger of a recession coming, which is what we're all worried about. And that's why gold just hit another record high. And central banks, they just keep buying gold at a record pace. It's Linda here. Join me and thousands of people who have called Goldco the #1 rated gold company. It's time you diversify your money with time-tested safe haven assets, physical gold and silver. Today, Goldco is offering our listeners up to 8 years in free IRA fees, plus up to 8% in bonus silver with a qualified account. Call 855-815-GOLD for free IRA fees, free bonus silver, and a free gold and silver info kit. What are you waiting for? Call 855-815-GOLD. That's 855-815-GOLD. Do it today. You can't wait.
And thank you very much, Linda, from the Sean Hannity Show. Remember, you can listen to Sean exclusively here for the best debate coverage, the pre-debate coverage. Check out Sean Hannity today. Of course, Clay and Buck will be rolling on that as well. And Clay giving his theories yesterday. It was great to hear Clay talking about how he thinks this is going to go down. The real issue is we don't know how it's going to go down, but it will be must-see television. And, of course, tomorrow we'll have the big rewind on that. We'll talk a little bit more about the debate as well. Get your thoughts. Like I said, it comes down to how do you see this playing out? And, you know, our thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Aurora, Colorado. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Springfield, Ohio. Look, I am not a poser. And the reason why I say this is there are many people in this state, in this city, that pretend to be something they're not. Conservatives. I have been on the immigration thing for years and years and years, back to 1995, when I interviewed a guy named Peter Brimlow, who wrote the book Alien Nation. And I've seen our country go way too liberal. I mean, when you have Channel 7 calling the Heritage Foundation a hard right-wing effort, and most of those reporters weren't even born when the Heritage Foundation started or why the Heritage Foundation started, the world has gone crazy. Or when you have people trying to disprove that we have an illegal immigration problem in this state, you need something. So I was speaking with somebody the other day. They go, oh, Kevin, you're out there. I go, well, no one else does it. And maybe that's the case. Maybe we're all just liberals. But the idea that you're having people in Springfield, Ohio, worried about geese and ducks and house pets being eaten by the Haitians. And I've heard that stuff going on around here where the health department has been called because you've had people in apartments doing this. Allegedly. I'm not going to be the guy that says that happens here allegedly, but are you kidding me? That they have people going after kittens and all sorts of things? 30,000 people, 20,000 people going into little Springfield, Ohio, and you're thinking, where is Springfield? That's where Patriot Ray was born, number one. And number two, it is west of Columbus, Ohio, the state's capital. I don't understand why you don't call up the National Guard and go, look, you either obey the rules of this country or you're out. It's simply put, I mean, we keep saying, glad it ain't happening to me. Well, what happens when it does happen to me? Are you ready? Good morning, you're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, good job there, Kevin. Thanks for taking the call. Hey, so tonight's debate, I'm just praying that Trump stays completely on track of all of the plethora of issues that this administration has and has the ability to articulate them out, just frankly and straightforward, kind of like Tulsi Gabbard did with her in the original debate to form the Republican Party candidate in 2016. So it's to me, where we're at right now, there's this 18 to 24 years old of young ladies that would potentially be the swing vote for Kamala Harris. And you just think about that, and most of them are college students. And in college, they're teaching girls that, having a family is not what you want to do. You want to go to college, which as if both couldn't be done at the same time, for God's sakes. And so I find it amazing that this group of people has been totally indoctrinated from schools, from the beginning of elementary school all the way through college, to really just become compliant little socialist people. And this is why we're where we're at today. We've watched this happen for years and years and years, knew it was happening. We haven't done anything about controlling the schools in which that they have to teach the truth. And they have to also teach what would be respectful, constitutional understanding of the way we work as a republic.
Fox News Radio, a tough loss for the Ravens last week, but it's always good to have you with us.
Oh, well, okay, now that you reminded me of that, Kevin, I guess I'm going to have to cut a promo on you.
Just feeling the pain, man.
I know. I'm so excited to be back on Capitol Hill and talking to Kevin when Kevin wants me to call in when all this cool stuff's happening, and I've got to get asked the same question I've been asked the last 3 hours over and over again about this debate. Oh boy, I'm so excited.
we try to make it a little different. We try to personalize it for you instead of going.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do at least give me something to work with. Some guys will just be like, not all of them, but some will be like, so Ryan, what are you hearing? And I'm like, about what?
Yes. I think that would be our friend JT in Birmingham. But anyway, we love him.
Oh, never.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit about this big matchup that happened over the weekend where Brian Danielson got beat up by his friends with the Blackpool.
Yeah, it was pretty messed up, wasn't it?
It was. Now, will this debate be messed up? And to quote the great Western philosopher Ric Flair, it all comes down to this.
Yeah, I mean, to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? I think that's the situation Vice President Kamala Harris is in. Clearly President Biden was not capable of doing that anymore. That's why they have, in many ways forced him out as the nominee. So Harris has an opportunity here to really separate herself from former President Trump, and Trump's got the exact same opportunity too. But I can't think of a debate where probably there was more at stake than the one we're looking at right now.
Well, and again, Ryan, you live in the land of reality yet make-believe, where you have people getting millions of dollars to consult folks and go, well, what they wear and their body language, all sorts of goofiness. And in the end, it's going to be emotional, the reaction people get from this debate tonight.
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot to unpack here. I think one of the questions we hear from Republicans is, can former President Trump stay focused on the issues? And on the Harris campaign side, it's is she going to be able to get maybe under Donald Trump's skin and get him to get off of the issues? And is she going to be able to lay out her vision for the country? Because that's, I think, one thing that's been a liability for her is that I think a lot of voters still don't know where she stands on some key issues, or where she sees or what vision she has for a lot of those key issues.
Well, and again, are we going to hear the word "you're a felon" tonight? Are we going to hear, a word that, Aurora, Colorado, or Springfield, Ohio? There's a lot of what ifs tonight.
Yeah, I think there definitely are a lot of what ifs. And, somebody I think had an interesting point the other day, Kevin, where they said they believe the first person to get under the other person's skin is going to be the winner tonight. And I don't think that's a far-fetched thought.
Well, as I wonder, Ryan, is she really that bad? On the other hand, she could really rise expectations because Republicans are talking about she's not done interviews, she's not done this. She's had a week to debate in Pittsburgh. Gosh knows what you do in Pittsburgh for a week. However, there you have this whole thing. So, I mean, it maybe, like they said with Joe Biden, if he doesn't fumble the ball, it's a win for him. Could that be the same for the vice president?
I think it's possible. As long as she doesn't have any super cringy moments, as long as she doesn't, give in to Donald Trump's maybe, what he does. There's so many ways this could go. I think it's just all a mystery, honestly.
You're supposed to be the expert here.
Well, I don't know what to expect. This is a hard debate to really wrap your head around. And, of course, there's a big group of people walking by me with vacuum cleaners, and they are making as much noise as they can humanly do. It's like a younger sibling. I mean, I'm very happy I don't have to live with my younger brother while I do these hits with you, Kevin, because he probably just bang a drum the entire time.
You just have to clothesline him.
Yeah, super like Shawn Michaels just going super kick everyone in the hallway.
Yes, and Gunther should be ashamed of himself what he did to how he treated Bret Hart last night.
Yeah, and we should. Oh, I didn't see that. That sounds awesome. I will YouTube that after this. But we do not condone super kicking people in hallways. That is only something that can happen on wrestling shows.
And you have the last word, my friend.
Yeah, was that was it? That was the last word, I thought.
You counted me out. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, man, Kevin. It must be football season.
It must be. We try to make it memorable here in Idaho for you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it always is. It always is. I'm always like, I got to get ready for whatever zinger Kevin's going to throw at me. It's not exactly on topic. So here we go. And today was a good one.
Thank you, Ryan. You have a great day.
Hey, you too, Kevin. Thank you.
Our great friend Ryan Schmelz joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. To NFL legend, philanthropist Steve Young, and we didn't get a chance to air this. So Steve Young did visit the Idaho prison, and it did make some waves. And this really isn't a sports interview. It's a life interview. So we're going to share with you our interview with NFL Hall of Famer, college football Hall of Famer, Steve Young. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning, joining us now by NFL legend Steve Young. Of course, Mr. Young, much more than that. He's coming to Idaho, and Mr. Young, you hear this all the time from people young and old, grandfathers to little kids. We grew up watching you. Thank you for joining us, sir.
You bet. Call me Steve, please.
Well, okay, Steve. Tell us a little bit about what's important to you and why you're coming to Idaho, sir.
We've got, first of all, I was born in the West and, raised in, and went to school in the West and find, a lot of 49er fans all over the West, really all over the country, really all over the world. So, but that's not why I'm coming. I think there's I've hit on a theme in my life. Maybe it's because I'm, how should I start? I guess my old coach, Bill Walsh, was a Hall of Fame coach for the 49ers. And he used to start every season. He'd have the team meet. And in the first meeting, he would say, look, we got to work together, 50 of us, to develop an element of love for each other. And I always thought that was such a unique thing to say, and especially for a football coach, because it seemed that wouldn't be the first thing that you think a football coach would say. And his theory was that if we could develop some depth of relationship with each other, not just the hi, hello kind, but like in the lunchroom and the locker room and the buses and the airplanes, and if we could kind of force the cross-fertilization of everybody where we develop relationships together, that when we went to Lambeau Field to play the Packers and it was freezing rain and never been colder in your life in the fourth quarter down by 4 and the 3rd and 10, that when you got in the huddle, you looked across at somebody that you had you could see them. You were part of their life. It was a relationship. And he always believed that was fundamental to great teamwork, to great success. And there was a irony in it, right? In losing yourself in others, that's how you could, kind of win. And that he wrote a book called The Score Takes Care of Itself. And so with that, in that way, the score takes care of itself. The idea is if you live these values, the score takes care of itself. And so I've taken that into my life in business, and then especially in my theological and religious life, where I wrote a book called The Law of Love, which is essentially the universal principle that I just described, that transactional relationships don't last. They might be great for a while, and so in every relationship we have, whether it's on the football field or with your fellow teammates or at home or anywhere else, that taking that universal truth, that losing yourself in seeking other people's healing, other people's goodness, other people's profit and abundance, that's the spirit of, and I took it to business as well, where I'm in private equity, which is the ultimate transactional business, and you make deals and you get something, you give something, and that's the way it works. But if that's all it is, then it kind of doesn't. There's no abundance in it, and then we can take the same philosophy in business relationships. So I'm coming, I guess, to Boise to talk about this universal principle and seeing if I can't make sense of how to better. And I know I'm rambling, but I was in the cars late with I promised my wife I'd be home to get her to an appointment, and I'll be honest with you, I'm late a lot, and it's a bad habit. And I'm in the turn lane going left, and a guy's in front of me, and the light turns green. I'm late. I'm like, go, and he doesn't go. Like, you've been there, and so I'm like, and I want to scream, I want to honk, I want to yell. I'm like, nah, don't. We're in a relationship now, right? He and I are in a relationship. He doesn't know we're in a relationship, and I'm like, just breathe, just take a deep breath, just let it be for a second. So I did, and I said, he'll go, just relax, And then he didn't go, and then I'm like, I gotta go, and then all of a sudden he did go, and he turned, and then about 200 yards down the road, we turned left together. There was another red light, so I pulled up by the side of him. And I just remember looking over at him, feeling like, we're in a relationship, and, I made it more profitable. Like instead of looking over after, if I had flipped him off or honked at him or something, it would have been an awkward, weird, kind of thing. And I'm talking about relationships, no matter if it's for 30 seconds on the road or in the elevator, all the way to the football field, to business, and then obviously at home. So, yeah, I guess that's what we're doing.
We appreciate it. Steve Young joining us, KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Steve, we take a look at, and a lot of folks don't know, while you were playing in the USFL and the NFL, you were on planes actually studying to become a lawyer. Talk about, pulling yourself in so many directions back in the pre-digital era.
Well, my dad, when I was growing up, I wanted to be Roger Staubach, who was a quarterback for the Hall of Fame quarterback for the Cowboys. I wasn't necessarily a Cowboy fan. I guess if I was, I matured out of it. But that's what I tell about Cowboy fans in general. But right. I had the poster on my wall, and I wanted to be Roger Staubach. And I told my dad that was my dream, that I wanted to play in the NFL. And he would say when I was little, he was like dreams are cool. Like, you need dreams. I like dreams. And dreams are like less than 1% chance. So those are very, unlikely. But you should have them. So I was like, you should have them. But what's the plan? He was always on me, like, well, what's the plan? What are you gonna do with your life? 80% chance, not less than 1% chance, but 80% chance. What would you do that you could get done? And I said, well, I guess dang, man, I guess I go to college. I think there's 80% chance I could do that. And probably 80% chance I could go to law school because I'd be a lawyer like you. He said, okay, that's a plan. I think that's a good plan. So you have a dream and a plan. That was his big deal. And so then I went pro in the NFL, and I remember telling him, well, Dad, the dream became the plan, man. It happened. And he said, yeah, but it's average career in the NFL is 3 years. So, what are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, geez, this guy is relentless. And so I ended up going to law school while I was playing, mostly because it was part of the plan that he had. And I had the time in the off season, and for 6 winter semesters, BYU Law School, I went and we went to 3 Super Bowls during those 6 years, and so I was always late to class. But it was what I did, and I give my dad a lot of credit for staying, kind of keeping with me, telling me that you always have to have a plan and always have to have a dream, and don't give up on either one. And that's kind of what's defined how I, the second half of my life was because I had a plan that my dad had when I was a kid.
Steve Young joining us, talking about the plan, his love for Idaho, and, of course, giving back. Steve, a lot of folks on KIDO Talk Radio around the world don't know much about your charitable foundations, how much you give back. You love Camp Rainbow Gold here and other nonprofits. Why commit so much of your life to helping others?
I don't know that I'm... I don't know. It feels like it's part of the deal in a way, right? Like we're in it to pay it forward. I've always thought about that, whether it's with wisdom, whether it's with your time, whether it's with your talent, or whatever else you have. And so I started the Forever Young Foundation when I was playing at the suggestion of my agent lawyer at the time, Lee Steinberg. I'd never even thought about it. And it was funny. He goes, well, what do you want to, we're going to start a foundation. What do you want it to do? I said, I don't know. We should probably help people. And let's raise money for people that can't raise money very well. And I remember going to a dinner. There's a group of women that were raising money to buy some vans for their disabled children so that they could, transport the disabled children around for the different activities in school and everything else to kind of as a service to the community. Anyone who had a disabled child, they could help. And they formed a 501c3 charity, and they were going to raise money. And so they spent half a year, for a dinner, for a fundraising dinner that I went to. And I remember as I went to the dinner to support them, I think they raised, $37,000. And I thought to myself, wait a second, I could probably raise that money or even more, much easier. They don't have to spend half a year developing a dinner, and I don't have to go to the dinner. It was like a super win-win-win, and that's how I got started. And so I don't know that I think I'm any different than anybody else. We're people give in a lot of different ways, and so we just peck away in our own little, part of the world where we do recreational therapy units in hospitals around the country. We've done music therapy units in hospitals around the country. We support a lot of charities. Camp Rainbow Gold is one of the ones. Brenda Thurston. We have a arm of our Forever Young Foundation that we do kind of support and consulting essentially for charities to come together. I think we do it twice a year where we come together over a couple-day period and do boot camps for 501c3s or any kind of charitable organization, so we can give them insights and on how to build a better foundation, how to be more efficient, how to help fundraise, how do we get your strategy better. So we've really enjoyed being around all the good that Camp Rainbow Gold does in your area. And so anyway, you asked me why. I don't know. I feel like that's my part of paying it forward. And, on we go. I trust me. I'm not looking, it's not the Steve Young Foundation. It's the Forever Young Foundation. And it's not because, I don't want to think that it's about me. It's about really good people, like-minded people just doing good stuff, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, we're glad to have you here in Idaho. Two final questions for you, and I know you're not going to escape this, but as someone who grew up as a little boy watching the USFL, are you amazed at the legacy of that league, sir? And you're a great part of it. I'm not going to ask you about the equity and all that stuff and the $1 million contract, but the legacy of the USFL.
Yeah, a lot of people, listeners, don't know that in 1983 and 4 and 5, and really beginning in 82, the USFL started in the spring. It was a spring football league, and it was super successful and had established itself in 30 communities around the country. And by 1984, when I was leaving to go to the NFL, instead of being drafted number 1 by the Cincinnati Bengals, I decided to go to the LA Express. And Reggie White, a future Hall of Famer, went to
the Memphis Showboats.
He went to the Memphis Showboats, exactly. I can't believe I forgot that. And Herschel Walker and Gary Zimmerman was a University of Oregon offensive tackle. He became a Hall of Famer, played with me at the LA Express. And so there's a lot of young, super talented people. It was a lot of fun. And it's unfortunate because everybody knew that it was going to be successful. Then we tried to move to the fall and to go against the NFL, and that was not a smart move, and I ended up kind of crushing it. But the spirit of what the USFL was and the 1,500 jobs for guys that wanted to play professional football and all the good that it could do, it never left, I think, the psyche of football fans. And I think that's what you're saying, the legacy, as they try to come up with different ways to do it. They're back with many of the same names running the trying to do the same kind of thing, because I think football has it's a unique place in America. You saw it last night. I mean, how many people watch the Chiefs play the Ravens? I mean, 80% of the country probably, and football's a deep rooted part of the of our American experience, and I think the USFL, in a strange, weird way, is still we can't just let it go.
No, I will tell you, as a 56-year-old man, I went out and bought some old Oakland Invaders logos, T-shirts. No one knows what it is, but a lot of folks don't understand, Steve, that because of the USFL, the NFL has these great salaries that they have today, number one. And number two, with respect to your time, sir, we'd love for you to comment on that. And finally, you've overcome adversity. You've inspired people. For people listening right now to KIDO Talk Radio, they're going through a tough time. What can you say to give them hope?
Oh, wow. Well, I think, first of all, hope is it's an energy. Like, it's physical. It's not a dream. It's not metaphorical. Hope is like a fuel. And I find myself, in many ways, in my life, when I'm in really difficult or challenging spots, that finding the faith and hope in the situation is vital. And I don't think I'm concocting it either. I think it's actually kind of energizes the world, and the human experience. So how do you? I can give ideas for hope, but I think each individual has to kind of take the offer from heaven that hope is just sitting. It's always there, always a part of any situation, and you have to almost fake it till you make it almost sometimes, where it's like, okay, I believe that there's some hope out there. And I'm going to start with that feeling that, and then I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to hold it tight, and I'm not going to give in, and I'm going to always have it a part of my life. And I think that in many ways it's, and then it grows. And I think there's power, like literally physical power in hope. And I find myself at times, everyone gets hopeless, everyone. I think that's why hope is so important, because you know that what it feels like to have no hope. So anyway, I don't have a self-help. I'm not a guru. I'm not a self-help guru. I just know that that's a fundamental part of what gives me energy every day, and I can tell you that it's free and it's always available. And I think you just got to, almost like kind of a constant river of hope of every human being. You just kind of jump in the water, I think, in some ways.
Steve Young, we appreciate you. Thank you for your work with Camp Rainbow Gold and giving back so much and being so generous with your time for us here in Idaho, sir.
Kevin, you're the man. Appreciate it. And I look forward to being in the Boise area tomorrow and excited to, just have a conversation.
Steve Young, thank you for inspiring us. You have a great day, and we love the story about the guy honking and the turn at the light because, quite frankly, we go through that all the time here in Idaho.
Every day, right? Or every day. And, I that moment when I looked over at him, like, we're in a relationship, and it's going pretty good. It's worth it. It's worth making the effort. In every relationship you have is to dive in and see if you can't see the other person as more human. It's a good thing. And it started as a former San Francisco 49er. So I guess that's the story from here.
Right, and of course, a lot of people don't remember your time with the Bucks. And again, you and the offenses of today with the rules today, people don't give you guys enough credit, sir.
Well, the rules have changed. Everyone gets that. But the game has become my game. Like, I was an oddity back when I played. The scrambling lefty, the prototype was Dan Marino and John Elway. And those are the guys that everyone wanted. They just thought that was the perfect quarterback. And I was always the odd guy. And now the game has completely changed. And the prototype is me. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Josh Allen. It's Lamar Jackson. It's C.J. Stroud. It's like, oh my gosh, this is my game. Where was this? This is the game that I want. So it's really funny. After all these years, the game's kind of come to me. So it's fun to watch for me.
Yeah, where was the game when Richard Dent was chasing you?
Exactly, a Reggie White, right?
Yep.
So true. All right. Well, great to be with you.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
Okay, take care.
There we have it, our interview with Steve Young. And as you notice, it wasn't about sports. It was about giving back to the community, the Forever Young Foundation, Camp Rainbow Gold, and other nonprofits that they really help. And, when Steve Young talked about this, and he said, and by the way, it'll be on our podcast, but I think the big lesson there was, that's part of the deal is giving back. And we sure do that in Idaho. And obviously, we encourage you to help all these charitable nonprofit groups. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say stop freaking, call Beacon today. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studio, traffic now still dealing with accidents at milepost 35. Also, as you pass that Garrity interchange right there in the Gore, we have an accident. It is slow and go there. Inbound on the connector, they have the car up over the embankment there at Chinden. Right-hand side, you're going to find delays there. If you have an accident, Mike Miniger's Auto Body will restore your vehicle to pre-accident condition and guarantee their work. Call Mike Miniger's Auto Body. Visit BoiseAutoBody.com. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
No, I am your father.
How many of us, whether we were young or old, were shocked when the voice of James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, actually said those lines to Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back? Just simply amazing.
Look, Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom. Wow. A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
I know they've redone The Lion King several times. They have the Broadway show, The Lion King. I have to admit, I've never seen The Lion King. However, this phrase has stuck with me forever, and I need to see The Lion King. In fact, maybe I'll figure out if I can watch The Lion King in honor of James Earl Jones. By the way, 93. What a great run.
When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
Yeah, I don't want the antelope eating me, number one. Number two, kind of weird when you think about it. So the lions eat the antelopes that eat the grass that was the lions? Maybe there was a good reason why I didn't see The Lion King.
When we die, our bodies become...
No, we got that one, Sweet William. Can we go to the next one, please?
Grass.
No, Sweet William, my goodness. Can we go to the next one?
Eat the grass.
Oh, I guess we're not going to go to that. We're going to eat the grass. Okay, I think we got eating the grass. You know what I mean? Anyway, we'll remember James Earl Jones coming up in a minute, obviously at 580-5436, 580-KIDO with Simba and the Lion King. You say this is a different cut here. Let's take a listen.
When we die,
I keep trying to go to this. Well, apparently we're having some operator errors. Let's go to another clip of James Earl Jones. Remember, he was in Coming to America with Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall.
I understand you're seeing my son.
I was seeing him.
Then he must have told you about his wife in Zamunda.
He's married?
No, but he will be soon. We've already chosen his bride.
Zamunda.
So you see, he could not be at all serious about you.
At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, what an outstanding voice.
I'm King Joffrey Joffre, ruler of Zamunda.
So, Matt, no matter what the line, whether it was as serious as Darth Vader.
No, I am your father.
Of course, Field of Dreams, is that your favorite baseball movie? Of course, yes. That's Bo's favorite baseball movie. That when Kevin Costner kidnapped him and then they went to the Field of Dreams. By the way, I'm going to put my vote in for Bull Durham. Bo, the optimist, me, the cynic. An optimistic person loves Field of Dreams. The cynic, the realist, the person that lives in the world, it's Bull Durham. It's Bull Durham, you know? I don't audition. I'm too old to audition. You know what I mean? Anyway, back to remembering James Earl Jones on KIDO Talk Radio.
I am your father.
I think we got that, buddy.
James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars, has died. He was 93 years old. The EGOT winner starred in many films throughout his venerable career. He was widely regarded as one of the great stage and screen actors. He won an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony in his lifetime. Jones appeared in many of the most famous films coming out of Hollywood, including the Stanley Kubrick classic Dr. Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Several films in the Star Wars franchise. Field of Dreams, he played Mufasa in The Lion King. His other credits include The Hunt for Red October, Patriot Games, and The Sandlot. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
There we have it. Michelle Polino, Fox News. There we have, again, a gentleman that just transcended time. And hard to believe that he was 93. But there we have it. James Earl Jones and his contributions back when things were bigger, right? Back when things were bigger than they are. Don't forget our friends at Window World Boise. If you're thinking about getting your windows done, why not get them done before the big winter comes? If you're tired of being baked alive like I am, and you consider yourself, well, you know, Kevin Miller, I don't need windows. Oh, it gets a little drafty. My house is 15, 20 years old or older. Check out our friends at Window World Boise. They do such a great job. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Today, big day in Idaho. Do want you to remember our friends at Big City Coffee. Their trial continues. You think about what is going on here and the wokeness at Boise State. It is unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that this 24-year institution closed. And I'd ask you to remember those folks, and hopefully they'll have something going on. Let's go to Paulie in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Paulie.
Good morning, Kevin. I see you're back from your vacation. I hope you had a good time.
You know, I just stayed home and hit the heavy bag and just hung out. And, I pined for coming back here.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to leave a place that you spend as much time in as you do or I do, or whoever, still in the working mode. You think about work when you're on vacation, and it's like it's the worst thing you could be thinking about, but you're just hoping that everything's running smooth when you're gone. So,
I will tell you, before Bo, I would wake up in a cold sweat every Sunday morning because we'd have massive technical issues. So I don't do that anymore, thanks to Bo. But I will tell you that because, again, I'm not really a real person. I'm a caricature of a person. That after the Boise State game, I actually was dreaming about writing 2 blogs that like 3 people read, one including my mother, about the Boise State game and the fan reaction to it. So you're right about both of us being tortured souls, sir.
I don't know if it's tortured, but maybe overworked and underpaid in that aspect of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to touch base. Hamas and Israel, they're at an impasse. They're not getting anywhere. I think that Secretary of State is. I think he's an abject failure. He's not quite like Neville Chamberlain, maybe not as that gullible. Maybe that's why he appears to be a failure. But nevertheless, we're not making any headway about separating the three things: separating the Israelis from the Hamas, and Hamas from the people that they're keeping as hostages. And to shoot 6 hostages in the head in one of those tunnels is unforgivable in my book. I don't know how anybody else looks at it, but to be dispatched in such a manner is just hideous. As the word my mother would use when she was really mad. She'd say that's hideous. And I feel the same way. I believe that they're not going to make any headway at all until after the election is over. We're talking about having a debate tonight, and I'm not really sure who's going to win or lose out of the debate. I think if people will see what they're up against to some extent, it's going to be well hidden. I think Kamala has got things well hidden. She's had them well hidden for a long time. Like, what did she do when she was the DA for San Francisco? She was also in charge of being the DA for Chinatown. That's a pretty heavy responsibility, especially when that's your adversary. And I know a little bit more about that, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's not my place. But what was her father doing while he was teaching in Berkeley at Cal? And what was he doing? Well, he was a Marxist. And what were the Black Panthers in Oakland doing at the same time they lived in the same town together? I'm sure they had some kind of interaction. Not to spread rumors, but it's pretty obvious that those type of minds think together and they hang out together. And so there's lots of questions about those interactions that could be or couldn't be. Who knows? And I think that when you put some of these things together and then you look at something like Hamas, which is they're just out and out murderers, period. Not just for the 6th, but for what they did on October 7th. They're murderers. They're thieves.
Well, but you look at Joe Biden, you look at Kamala Harris, and that they tiptoe through the tulips with Hamas. Now, I will tell you, Paulie, I'm getting ready to go to New York next month, and we're going to be there on the anniversary of the attacks. And the FBI is already, stopping the Iranians from doing more. I mean, we're talking about they're bringing it home, and then you have, and pardon me for everybody in Idaho that doesn't like when we're offensive, the complete and utter idiot morons in Boise and in Idaho and across the country that are supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and everything else. You have to be a complete entitled idiot to be out there. And to the protesters in Boise by the Capitol, you're morons.
Yeah. Well, I think that they're not going to get the hostages back. They can have all the card games they want together. They can play pinochle for all I care. But there's not going to be any movement until the elections are over and done with, until they know who they're going to be dealing with. And then maybe there might be some movement. But by then, how many more hostages are going to perish in the process? That's what really bothers me. I mean, it bothers me. It makes me shake thinking about it.
I would agree. Paulie, thank you for that insightful call, and thanks for letting me know you missed us yesterday. And Kent Goldthorpe said he missed us yesterday, so it's good that it's my mom, Paulie, and Kent. The Big Three with Kevin Miller. Let's get you to traffic. KIDO Talk Radio traffic. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studio, on the freeways, you're coming through Canaan County, still really slow right at Garrity. They moved that accident off to the right-hand side, but traffic running slow. It's got a lot of looky-loo. Inbound on the connector at Chinden, they just about have that accident scene cleared up, but it is slow and go getting into downtown Boise. It's a fall tire sale at Commercial Tire. For a limited time, save up to $250 on select sets of tires for your car, truck, or SUV. Shop at commercialtire.com or one of their 15 Treasure Valley locations. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
Thank you very much, Dave. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say stop freaking, call Beacon. And one story that isn't getting a lot of attention is this Big City Coffee Boise State story. And it's a tough one because everybody wants to believe that, you know, you wear your blue and orange and everything's great and it's going to be a good game against Portland State. And it's challenging. And it's challenging in the world of sports, which are entirely woke. I mean, who's the last conservative in sports? It was our own Clay Travis, and he left sports to go into politics because being in politics is more honest than being in sports. But here you have a local business, 24 years. They thought they were doing the right thing by going into Boise State. They're suing Boise State for $10 million. Boise State has tried to get it dismissed. It's not going to be dismissed. They're still litigating it. By the way, Kevin Richard, great article here from Idaho Education News. I believe he has to be the best reporter that we have going right now. Although he does cover the education beat, his stuff always kind of sidebars off into politics, which is good. Here you go. I don't believe that they left voluntarily. Day 6 from the Big City Coffee trial. Amidst a rising student backlash, Big City Coffee was pushed off the Boise State University campus in October 2020, a university administrator said Friday. By the way, again, this is from Idaho Ed News. I don't believe they left voluntarily. Associate Vice President for Campus Services Nicole Niman said in testimony in the Ada County District courtroom. So they were pushed out, allegedly. Can you imagine the frustration? Why were they pushed out? Because you had a lot of entitled students who have never paid a mortgage, never made a car payment, most likely haven't paid for their tuition, decided that they don't like the police. Imagine a world where we don't have the police. We have to start building bridges. But to allow a local institution to be pushed out, shame on the university administrators. We'll talk about that coming up. Dave Petso will join us, Lars Larson, as we get ready for the big debate. Are you ready, Kevin Miller? Dave Petso. Didn't know if you were going to join us today after a rough week. However, once again, the sun always shines on Dave Petso of Money Matters because I believe you guys had a good day yesterday in the markets.
We did. We're just banking everything on that, and I'm just going to be happy. Okay. I know last week was rough. And but that's markets. That's what happens. That's what always happens. We don't get to have straight up, and I know. It's good to have an up day. It's better than a down day, but most days are up, and that makes me happy most days then. How's that?
They are until they're not. And again, in all fairness, what do you make of this? Obviously, no one wants them to be down, and everybody gets panicked, as you discuss on your show and have for 75 years on KIDO Talk Radio. However, as we've talked about, just looking at the models and stuff, eventually there has to be a correction, or am I just spewing my anti-market propaganda as usual?
It's a little of both. Corrections are totally normal. But they are, and as I like to say, they're certain to occur over and over again all the days of our life. But we tend to get real excited about it, or we tend to try to time it, and we try to think right now with the election coming up, or with this or with that, Kamala's crazy stuff, whatever it is. We get a little bit overly excited about it, and we think that because we can look at the news, which is basically, as you and I have talked about, a historic report of what happened yesterday, that is somehow telling on the future. And it really isn't. And it's just hard for us to grasp this idea that we, as brilliant linear thinkers, and humans are, can, by putting lines together, charts together, numbers together can equate that to, well, we are going to have a recession. Well, for 2 years, we've talked about having a recession. And interest rates rising was certainly going to bring a recession. And it hasn't, will it? I don't know. Most people think not. I still think there's a real possibility, and I also don't care. We're slowing down. And that is not good news. It's not good for the economy. And the jobs market, as we showed last week, continues to really struggle from job openings being down very dramatically, lowest level since 2021. We saw jobs numbers revised for both June and July very negatively down. And we also know that, 2 weeks ago, we had an announcement for 800,000+ jobs. Oops, we overstated those. This job market is not strong. And that is a key indicator of really what we all know. It just really isn't that strong out there.
What does it mean for this debate? People are living in fantasy land.
They are. The media is, Kevin. I got to believe. I do. I just can't believe that people are this silly, honestly, that we really look around the world and we see how poorly places like Europe operate. And we hold that up, if you're a leftist, as some kind of model of this is really great stuff when they can't compete against us. And our economy's better. And you say, well, what about lifestyle? Our lifestyle's better. We got a big, giant country, but we only have 5% of the world's population. 5%. And we have 25% of the output. What does that mean? That means we're 5 times richer than the average person on the planet. It's absurd how wealthy, how able to travel, how able we are to do all of the things that you want. You want to start a business. You want to educate your kids. You want to pass on generational wealth. It's an incredible thing, and only in America. That is not happening anywhere else in the world. And when we put more government policies in place, Kevin, we just wind up with socialism. And where once in all of history has this worked, except on college campuses and in the classroom? I don't understand this at all. And these policies from Kamala and company are just plain lunacy.
Now, wait a minute, Dave. I think that everybody should get $25,000 for a house because it'll make housing more affordable.
Yeah, well, as we stand economics on its head, of course that is, because putting more money, government money, into something does what? It increases demand, and when we increase demand, well, being a Ivy League economist, then I would say, but that will work because we demand that it work. Of course, prices are going higher, Kevin, because we're going to surge demand from people who really, I don't know how they're going to afford it. If you can't come up with $25,000, this is going to be this is it. This is what's going to do it. It's not the fact that you have enough income and your debt to earnings ratio isn't too high. That's not really the problem out there. No. It's you don't have $25,000. That won't work. We're talking about a very narrow group of people. And if you cannot accumulate money, in other words, you have a ratio of income to your debts that's high enough that you are going to be able to pay for that house and the repairs and the taxes and everything you need to do over time, but you somehow don't have enough left over after your rent to accumulate $25,000 over a couple of years. It's not going to work because we're now expecting people, I give them $25,000, prices get jacked up, but suddenly, magically, they figured out how to budget and put money aside for the future repairs on their house and all of the new furniture they have to buy. It's magic, and it's Kamala magic.
Well, and she's going to build a wall and everything else. It is challenging. Now, you've been very hard on the former president. So your thoughts on his performance tonight, and well, I'm not going to lead the Dave Petso commentary on President Trump. It's been made infamous over the years.
Yeah, Kevin, I hope. Honestly, I pray that he is just talks about the economy, not how stupid she is, not how not black she is, how this is the worst president ever in history and she was a vice president. He can say that, but you don't just say that. You say, as vice president during this administration, what did you do besides sit around and watch Joe and support policies that created inflation and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera, and millions of undocumented people. And now you're telling all of us you are going to fix that. I hope he stays on task. If he does, he wins. There's no way he doesn't go on to win the presidency. I believe people are finally starting to wake up. You hear all the polling, and when they break it apart and all this stuff, yes, it makes more sense. How can somebody just out of the blue, who's the most unpopular vice president in all of history, turn around and just fly into the White House? Only Donald Trump could make that possible. But Donald Trump just needs to be presidential. He was a good president. He's just not a good guy.
Dave Petso joining us, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's move on to the trial involving Kroger's and Albertsons. Now we're hearing the people saying they're going to have to close Albertsons. Of course, they weren't going to close Albertsons before big money Ohio-based Kroger was going to buy them out. I'm with the folks. I think less competition is going to mean price increases. Now King Kroger has said, Dave, that they're going to lower prices if the merger goes through. You tell it like it is. What's your take on the litigation that's going on? I know you like it when the free market doesn't decide things, when we all go to court. And you love going to court, Dave.
Yeah, because everybody loves a room full of attorneys. You know, that's just it's just a love affair with our justice system. We all love
and not to interrupt, but when you go to attorneys, it's like buying a friend. And you know, the attorneys are great because they'll listen to you or they'll talk to you as long as you want because they're on the clock and you're paying for it. I was talking to an attorney once. He goes, "Do you have to take that call?" I go, "No, buddy. I'm not taking this call because the meter's running." He didn't like that, but I mean, that is true of the world of litigation, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it totally is. Right. There's no problem. You can buy a friend because, yeah, you are. That's exactly right. And we all need them. Right? We get it. It's just the whole system is slow, inept, and frustrating. And it is. And big money can continue to run it. It's a frustrating thing for people, especially for people that don't have a lot of resources to get involved in because it's very expensive to litigate. And big money knows it. All you got to do is just keep it in court, and eventually they have to settle because they're out of money. So it is a difficult thing, no question about it. I don't think I want any more politicians that are attorneys. I just don't. I mean, it's just enough is enough. This is crazy. And I don't know why there's so many of them. I mean, almost all of them are left wing. It really doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No, I just like it when you talk to an attorney and you go, "Well, what do you think?" "Well, it could happen here, it could happen there, it could happen this, it could happen that." And you're like, "Oh, okay, great. And by the way, that's $500 for the time. But it was only an hour." "Yes, I cut your break." "Oh, you did? Okay, thanks."
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And we do need them. And they've gone to school for a long, long time. I think also, though, I have to say, as far as a lot of things like documents and all that, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to be heading into law school right now with the idea that AI wasn't going to be replacing a whole bunch of attorneys coming up.
Yeah. Well, the gilded
internet already has.
Well, the gilded age of litigation. So this is big where we have the FTC, we have all this going on. So what do you make of it?
Well, I do. You know, when we think about this, Kevin, there's a couple different things we have to understand. And I understand people want more competition. They want a grocery store on every corner they can walk to, and they're all fighting each other, and prices are declining. But that is not a model that works. It is very, very difficult to be in the grocery industry anywhere. And the companies are just cutthroat, and they have to get bigger to get better deals and survive. My concern in the long run is watching place after place, whether it's make it up, Council, Idaho, Riggins, watching the local grocery store finally disappear because they cannot compete against everybody who runs up to Lewiston or wherever and goes to Costco and just packs it all in. They can't compete against that, especially if there's like two little mom and pop places. It makes it more difficult to go, and prices ultimately higher if we don't allow some of these mergers to go through. It won't help prices if the Albertson stores do not do well and they begin to disintegrate. And that is not what we want to see. You're going to lose jobs. You're going to lose all kinds of things. It's really, to me, it's not the parallel, but I think it's worth talking about. And that's what's going on with Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel. I think both candidates are dead wrong, that this thing needs to go through, or you're going to watch these mills close, because they are not going to be losing money for, quotes, national defense reasons. And so if we don't allow them to merge, and of course the union says that we are for them not merging, right? We want to block it. But if you talk to union members, they don't necessarily feel that way at all. And I'm not going to paint them all or just look for the two people out there, but many of them are outspoken that they understand if we don't not modernize these plants, and U.S. Steel is not in a position to do it, if we don't close some of them, and these folks have said we're not going to close any, if we don't inject more money, more capital into this and bring these up to speed, we're going to lose our jobs, whether it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now, because these are going to close.
And let's continue that when we're talking about EVs and automobiles. Dave, please hang on. Our great friend Dave Petso, catch him this Saturday, 8 to 10 on KIDO Talk Radio. So Dave, when we take a look at, we're talking about U.S. Steel and, the Japanese buying it, or the Chinese buying it, or somebody buying it. You talked about the future of this, but on the other hand, here we have the car industry that is going to be undone because of the Biden administration saying EV, EV, EV. So where do we go from here? Dave?
Sorry, Kevin. I was on mute. I'm here.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Hit the mute button. I know. I couldn't figure out why you were interrupting me, for crying out loud. Well, sorry about that. This to me is the most incredible example of what government does, what regulation does. And this is why I'm so excited about the possibility of having a real commission, or whatever you want to call it, headed by real business people, not government wonks that's never done anything in the private sector, to come forth and look at what regulations are needed and what's done. Because this is an absurd situation, Kevin, that government is overreach. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And the answer is, now we are ruining the car business in this country, ruining it. And all because of your idiot ideas. And when we come around to these things, this is classic government overreach and rules. They all sound really good. All we meant to do was clean up the air and create a whole new industry and be better than the Chinese. And it's all good as long as you hide behind the idea that you're just doing it to be good. But what it does is it forces people, businesses, to do things that are not beneficial at all. And so we have got to just knock this stuff off. And I wish it was real easy to just kill government, but we can't. It's going to take a lot of time, and we're just kind of stuck with it right now.
Our great friend Dave Petso joining us here. So what about the Fed?
Well, the Fed's going to drop, next week? It is going to drop rates a quarter of a point or a half a point. Market will speculate. It's already built into interest rates, whether it's short-term, long-term. And the only speculation is how the market's going to react. If they go a half a point, does that mean the market's panicking about the economy? And so we're going to grind our teeth, and we're going to pretend that a quarter of a point is going to suddenly, miraculously ignite the economy again and create jobs. And of course it won't. And neither would a half a point. What we have is a situation where over time, it takes the interest rate increases to affect a slowdown. It takes time for interest rate cuts to affect an increase. Will it help on the margin some businesses that are tied to very short-term interest rates, the prime lending rate, for example? Yes, it will. It'll help them by that quarter of a point. But if you are missing it by a quarter of a point, you've got more problems. We all know that. And this economy really needs to get up and going more than we need to be worried about whether a quarter of a point or a half a point is any big deal. And, Kevin, you've already seen that, and that's the example I wanted to give, too. And that is when we look at the mortgage rates, we already have seen interest rates go down. And this is where I think people misunderstand. They're not going down because the Federal Reserve is going to drop rates next week. It is already going down to have reflected the thought months ago, actually, they started down months ago that we were going to be seeing interest rates ease, that inflation was easing. And so overall, the markets control those rates, not the Fed.
Well, aren't we trying to really manifest that? We're trying to manifest that rates are going to go down and people will buy homes and everything will be wonderful again?
They are. That's a really good point. There is a psychology behind it. And we all have to acknowledge that, whether you want to call it a wealth effect that people have when the value of their homes are going up, they feel a little bit wealthier, and they want to spend more money. I've never understood that, but that really seems to be a psychological condition for people. I mean, what am I going to do, move out and live in a tent and cash in? It doesn't make any sense to me that people are all bundled into the value of their home, but it does seem to have a psychological effect. But what really definitely has a psychological effect is when the stock market's going up and people's 401ks are going up, they do feel better about spending money. There's no question about that.
But back to the psychology of it all, people want those 2% interest rates on their home loans. As a man who is, money, the markets, history, that could be something like the Boise housing market that we may never see again.
It could be. I have learned over the years, Kevin, to not say, never. I'll never do this, or interest rates will never this or that. Because when I started in the industry, this is really going to date me. Interest rates were peaking at 21.5, and we all know that mortgages were 12, 16%. And there was a rule that if interest rates dropped 2%, then you paid the refinancing fee because it was worthwhile doing. And of course, that all went away. But people during that time were saying interest rates will never be below 10% again on mortgages. Never. And of course, that didn't take long for that to be wrong. Kevin, I hope they don't go back down to 2%, 3%, whatever, because that indicates a super weak economy, really in trouble, and the Fed overreaching, trying to fix things. We could end up with unbelievable inflation and really no bullets to use. The point is, can an interest rate cut help stabilize things if we get into a credit crunch? Yes, it can. Well, if interest rates are already at zero, what do? You got nothing. You've got nothing. And so we could have a crisis and absolutely nothing to do but ride it out. Not that that's necessarily bad. Sometimes we ought to just let things be and let the markets correct themselves. But that is not what people want. And it is going to be politically a difficult thing to say, well, we're doing nothing, or, because interest rates are already at zero. Kevin, I don't think it's a healthy environment for us to be at zero. I think we're much healthier now, where savers get paid something and investors still look for quality companies to buy because you get paid even more.
Dave Petso joining us. Kevin Mill in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. We take a look at the debt and everything else. How are we ever going to deal with that? And what will be the impact on people's retirements and savings? Because right now the government's paying for everything.
Yeah, they are. Kevin, it's a difficult thing because that's another penalty of rising interest rates. We now have and this is going to get worse automatically, not because I'm predicting interest rates going higher, but as debt comes due at lower rates, it's now being refinanced at higher rates. Back to the point. The point is that we are now in an environment where we are spending more on interest for our debt than we are for national defense. Now, I pause a minute to let that sink in. That means we have a non-discretionary something that's as big as what the past president right here, Biden, won't increase in a world that is on fire because he says we just don't have the money for it. So now we have even less money for it. But the entitlements keep going, and they're tied to inflation, so they go up even more. We have a real problem with the way our debt is structured. We have a real problem with our ability, seemingly, to cut back and pay things off. All we do is talk about tax increases, which is just a shill game of moving money around. It never actually goes to reduce the debt. It just goes to increase spending, which then increases the debt because we don't ever really do anything except lie about what the returns will be from raising taxes on those horrible billionaires that pay nothing, except the numbers say they pay, like the top 1% pays 35% of all the taxes. I don't know what nothing is, but that sounds like a lot. And with rates already at 50%, I don't know what you do to increase taxes except go after the middle class, which is what they do. The problem we run into without some real solutions, and it can be done because the assets of the United States are so big, we can do it if we quit increasing spending. We could freeze it. We could have it increase less than inflation. We do not have to raise taxes because that will slow down the economy and let time take care of it. The other thing that we could do to juice the economy is to reduce regulation, which costs us nothing. In fact, it makes the government money because they don't have people walking around with clipboards telling you that your grass is too long, that you didn't use the right pesticide, that you didn't cut that tree down and get a permit to do it. All of those things that just waste people's time, resources, and not all regulation is bad, but most regulation is. And it's a detriment to the private sector, which means it's a detriment to the economy, and we can't grow as fast. That's what we need to be doing.
Well, or at the very minimum, get back to pre-COVID levels of federal government spending.
Correct. They could get it paid off immediately if they said, okay, here's the deal, guys. Go to the balance sheet. I don't care what it is. Start cutting, except for military. What we have to have is protection. You find everything else out right here, and you go ahead, because now here's what you're going to get. You're going to get 20% of government revenues. And no games, no tax increases, nothing. Figure it out. They won't, because the decisions are hard, because it's going to be entitlements. We all know it.
Yeah, and look, Boise and other cities have benefited by the federal government. I mean, $3 million for EV vehicles, charging stations in Boise, because Mayor McClain is tight with Buttigieg. So, all these pet projects. You remember John McCain, God rest his soul, was always going after entitlements and pork barrel spending and all sorts of things, and we've all just gotten used to it, unfortunately.
We have. Both parties have. But you're right. The idea that Democrats are going to now be fiscally responsible would be, honestly, that would be expecting it to snow in August. It won't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And it won't happen because they're not. They just believe in tax increases, and they believe they can manage the economy, and you can't. Nobody has ever done it. And that's what I just don't understand. I do not understand the argument. But this is really about joy, and we got the most joyous candidate. I don't know that competent, but she's joyous, and that is really important, I think, for our future.
Dave Petso, we always appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin, and you have a wonderful day, and we'll see how the debate goes tonight.
Stay tuned, true believer. I can't top that. Thank you, Dave.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, our great friend Dave Petso. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. Stop freaking. Call Beacon today. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studio, traffic now on the freeways. You're coming out of Canyon County and Ada County. Looking a little bit better right now. It does slow down for you as you head into the Meridian area. Inbound on the connector, it's slow and go as well. Don't forget, headed up Highway 55, a lot of fire crews working that area. Cut your power bill year-round with G&G Insulation and receive up to 30% of the cost in tax credits for insulation and air sealing materials. Call G&G Insulation. Visit gndginsulation.com. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
Class is all fired up. We're fired up. We'd love to take your calls. Don't forget Larson today at 4. Right now in just about 4 minutes at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, actually 20 minutes. Let's get to some panel discussion concerning President Trump. But again, it's all Trump derangement syndrome. Before that, though, here is a Kevin Miller flashback. Kamala Harris talking about the Haitian migrants that are now taking over Ohio.
That is why, also, starting with our administration, we gave TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitian migrants, 55,000. And then more recently, we extended temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian migrants for that very reason, that they need support, they need protection.
Right. So now you have the left saying that the Haitian migrants really aren't taking over Ohio. Let's take a listen.
On this network that say a lot of these suits wouldn't have been brought if his name wasn't Donald Trump. Some very respected
And many
people.
voters see that and feel the same way, which is part
So
of
it's
why
not
I think
many
it has resonated across the country. But those are the people that have to get out and vote for him to help him win in November.
Let me ask you a question.
So you may not like it, but it's the
Let me ask
reality.
you a
And we can
question,
sit and
Madison.
debate back and forth, but you have to remember, you have to have empathy for the people out there across the country who are struggling.
Like
who are
Donald
going
Trump has
to
empathy for
No,
people? Are you
who are
kidding me?
going to... Please don't interrupt. Who are going to the grocery store and are
Excuse me?
struggling to pay for their groceries for their children. Who are going, and the economy has ravaged their lives.
Let me ask you a question.
Inflation
I just
has
wanna ask-
become incredibly
I wanna
insane.
ask you
He
a
left
question,
office, it was
Madison.
1.5%.
Can I
By
ask you a
2022,
question?
it was over 9%. This is a reality people are living with.
Inflation is down.
And it
is
may
down
hurt
now,
Kamala Harris more than you
2.9%.
think.
Inflation. We're not even.
But it's
talking
not
about
down
that.
to where it was.
Let me ask you a question.
People are still dealing with the realities of
Let me
that.
ask you a question.
People are
I just
still
wanna
dealing with
ask
those
you a question.
realities.
Have you ever heard Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or anyone in the Democratic Party leadership say that Donald Trump should be locked up in jail?
Yes, actually, a lot of Democrats. say
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Take a look at the lawfare in New York, the lawfare in Georgia, the lawfare in Florida, the lawfare in D.C. They must be getting desperate, quite frankly. They must be getting very desperate because let's bring up that Donald Trump is going to imprison the political opponents. By the way, the world was burning. The world was burning, and Donald Trump couldn't do anything about it because of the Democrats. The Democrats decided that they weren't going to enforce laws. Portland, Oregon. Overrun, burned down. Seattle, everything else, burned down. And you think to yourself at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, that this is just crazy. That this is what's happening, that we're going to come back with the hype, come back with the hyperbole, come back with everything else. By the way, Springfield, Ohio, you have the national media denying that the Haitians are eating the pets. From NBC4, the claims stem from the city of Springfield's own acknowledgement of a surge in its population, primarily due to an influx of illegal immigrants or illegal aliens, quote, the people from Haiti, known as one of the poorest developing countries in the world, received temporary protection status thanks to Kamala. NBC4 reached out to the city of Springfield to hear their take on the allegations of animals being eaten. An official could not answer any specific questions, citing influx of media inquiries, but did share a statement. Quote, in response to the recent rumors of alleged criminal activity by the immigrant population in our city, we wish to clarify that we have no credible reports or specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused. But now people are wondering about the geese and the ducks in the park. One local resident said, it is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I've made concessions with them. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard. I understand they're here under temporary protected status, but who is protecting us? So true. Let's go to our friend Ron Grant.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Who joins us now to talk about how to keep your money safe. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, young man. Yes, we need to keep it safe, especially what's happening around the world. We want to make sure you have a lifetime income that you can live on, not just taking 3 and 4 and 5% out of your 401ks or your 403bs, etc. We want to make sure that you have an income stream to live on, and that's what I've done for my money, and that's what I do for my clients' money. You know, market goes up, market goes down, but the bottom line is you want a consistent paycheck monthly or quarterly or annually, and that's what we do. You know, Kevin, if you're over 50, stop chasing returns and worry about getting that lifetime income that you can't outlive. See, I provide for my clients a lifetime of security through that lifetime of income, and that's important.
Ron, how can people get a hold of you to find out how they can keep their money safe?
Well, we can have a phone conversation right here in the Treasure Valley. I'm local. It's 208, and it's 660-1372. And before that, you may want to go onto the website. I put an educational website together. There's articles there that you can read. There's videos there that you can take a look at. Heck, you can even download the book, 10 Things to Know About Retirement Income. And that's safermoneyspecialist.com.
Ron, thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Have a wonderful day.
You as well.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Doug in Mountain Home joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin. On this debate coming up, I hope, I know he knows what he's doing, but I hope he holds the rein in on himself, and I hope he asks all the right questions, like everybody's saying. Listening to Dave right there at the last, Petso, about him saying Trump's not a nice person. You know what? I know somebody, and I ain't going to say no names, this politician that's been in the Trump Tower. And everybody that worked in there, she said she's never had been treated like that in her life. She goes, everybody was nice. Everybody loves the man. You go out in the street, they went to eat dinner, and everybody you talk to, police officers, the waitresses at the place they ate, they love him. Everybody that talks to the man, love him. So Dave Petso, because he says things about the left side, you know what? I wish he'd say more ugly things about them, because they are ugly, Kevin. They are evil. They are mean. They ain't even human as far as I'm concerned. They're full of Satan. Now, I got one thing I'd like to say. I don't know if you've heard this. I just found out about it last week through relatives that had come from Klamath Falls, Oregon. The Klamath River has had 5 power dams on it. Never heard nothing about it. This year, they freaking breached, took out 4 of them, Kevin. 4 dams. Have you heard anything about it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, look it up. All you got to do is look up dams breached on the Klamath River. They gave the authority and the water to them freaking Hoopaw Indians and the salmon. The power has increased on price to the people there that lived there for centuries, farmers and stuff. This started with Clinton and Gore. It's tripled in price since they breached them. They got one more to do, and they're going to do it. So, people, wake up. These people are communists. They don't care about U.S. It's about like what you were saying about the debt, Kevin, and listening to Petso about how the Democrats, I just don't get it. They don't understand. Yes, they understand it. They've been putting this together for decades. They know exactly what they're doing, breaking this country. So there's my perspective of the old man here. So get more people in there to smoke more pot. They're really smart. Or take cocaine. Yeah, let's get more of them in there. See you, Kevin.
See you, Doug. We appreciate you, always.
So they can play in their freaking garden, smoke their pot, drink their fancy wine, and eat their caviar like the liberals do.
580-5436, 580-KIDO.
Across the country who are struggling. That doesn't matter. They don't care. They want to pay for groceries for their kids. They want to get gas.
Are you going to focus on this subject? You're going to change the topic.
I'm going to focus on what matters. When you look at the states like Pennsylvania that are going to decide this election, and 80% of people say economy is the number one issue. They're not talking about political persecution.
And now you interrupted me repeatedly. So you're not consistent.
You interrupted me,
So you're not consistent. But the point I'm trying to make, though, Madison, is that what David said is that there's a lawfare campaign against President Trump. And he's comparing that to what Anna said about what's going on in Nicaragua, which is not the same at all, because there's no leadership in the top of...
That's not what he said.
Let me finish my statement. Let me finish my statement. There is no leadership in the top of our government who is encouraging the former president, to be locked up. This is happening separately. This is
New York, Washington, Georgia, Florida. We saw this with Bill Clinton. We saw this with Barack Obama.
Thanks, Obama.
Where Barack Obama, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, he would sick the IRS on people. How did they get rid of the Tea Party? Here's the funniest thing about this. Remember the Tea Party that was vilified? I know there are a lot of people in Idaho that loved the Tea Party. There are a lot of people in Idaho that were all about the Tea Party. That's why we have Tea Party Bob. And yet the Tea Party had to be taken out. There were vulgar names. People called the Tea Party people vulgar and all this. The Tea Party was the successor to the Contract with America. And it was really a revolt against establishment Republicans. And that happened, in 09, 010? And then you had Tea Party folks getting elected, and then they were targeted for being too extreme, to this, to that. And then people got tired, right? Cash for clunkers went away. The recession went away. People's 401ks came back. It was good times. Donald Trump was the personification of the Tea Party, not Ted Cruz, not Jeb Bush, not anybody else. Not anybody else, dear friend. And the Tea Party brought back the power to the people. We couldn't have that. And so what we saw during Barack Obama,
thanks, Obama,
was that Tea Party people were audited. During Bill Clinton, I mean, how many times did Rush Limbaugh talk about that, where he would be audited? Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity. We had a lady, you remember Becky from the Wetumpka Tea Party? One of the few things that I can pronounce correctly, Wetumpka, Alabama, who she was targeted because she dared question the government. Look, it's very easy to get gloom and doom. And if you missed our interview with Steve Young, I really suggest you go to the podcast on this. And again, the timing didn't work out on Friday. We got him after the show, but I wanted to save it so we could digest it. We're talking about hope. And we're not talking about Barack Obama hope. We're talking about hope when it comes to this country. We could sit there, and again, one of the issues that I'm highly cynical about is if you listen to too much of the stuff, like Fox News, everything's bad, everything's this, everything's that. You know, my favorite guy on Fox News, Sean. Sean's been there for years. Sean's great. However, everybody else, it's, read from the script. Gutfeld says the S word on the air. That does not help our cause. I will say this, and I'm not bragging about myself. Years ago, because I was one of those people, I was young and ambitious and thought I worked at the same place that Sean Hannity did. I've got an in, I'll go to a major market and I'll change the world, or at least my bank account. And I think if you did a study of people in small markets that were on networks, I think I'd be at the top of the list. So I've established my credibility with you. It's not being braggadocious. I went to New York. I was at a conference, and CNN flew me up there to go on. And this is when The Sopranos were big, and I didn't watch The Sopranos. So I'm going into the green room, and there's The Sopranos. And it's Paulie and Bubba and Wacky and Zany. It wasn't Tony. And I had changed in the car because the flight was late, literally in a cab, back when they had cabs. And I was all set to make it wasn't my CNN debut, but I was there at their old building. Greta Van Susteren, who's now on Newsmax, who's been everywhere, including CNN, was hosting the show. And it was about Rudy Giuliani. And Rudy Giuliani said, he shouldn't get the boot because he was cheating on his wife. Republicans have to be above reproach. And this is where a lot of people in the New Age movement disagree. Look, Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, that's just the Republicans. Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, they ain't with us. And we're not with them. We are just as good, as much as the deplorables. But and the new wave of the Republicans, they're street fighters. And look, I'm an OG from the old Street Fighter, Pat Buchanan. As I said on CNN, I will say it here, we have to be better. We have to be above reproach because the media is not going to give us the benefit of the doubt. The media is going to try to destroy us. The local media, it's silence by omission. And that's why they listen to this program. And that's why they seek to marginalize this program and to marginalize us. But they won't. But when you have this issue and you just have to sit there and say to yourself, if I can't say it in front of my spouse or my parents or at church, I'm just not going to say it. And that's the lesson I think that all of us have to take with us when we're dealing with these political fights. The Cheneys, God bless them. But there is hope, and we just have to maintain that. Coming up next, Larson will give you the great preview, his take on the big debate tonight, and more of your phone calls and the return of Liberal Steve. Yes, Liberal Steve, we are live. Yes, Liberal Steve, we are taking calls. You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO. Seems like it's been forever, but it's only been a week and a day. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Kevin. I want to tell you something. We should feel sorry for our friends, including some people in your audience who are fans of Kamala Harris and plan to vote for her and have told all their friends they're voting for her, maybe even put a yard sign out, because when they are asked by their friends a perfectly reasonable question, what do you like about her? What do you suppose those people can say? Because they say, well, I really like her position on, and then you fill in the blank, Kevin. Does anybody, other than abortion, does anybody know where she stands on anything?
No, not at all.
Now, wouldn't that put most average Democrats, God bless them, in their confusion? Wouldn't it put them in a kind of a tough spot? Well, I really like her stance on energy. Well, what is it? Yeah, I don't quite know, but it's not Trump. Well, how about her stance on how is she going to solve inflation, which the government created, so the government can solve it by not doing the things the government is still doing that create inflation? How are you going to solve that? She's been asked that question any number of times, and all she does is parrot back the symptoms. And I may have tried this on you before, Kevin. You know that, and my audience knows, some of them hate it, that I love analogies and metaphors and similes. If you were sick as a dog, and you think, I've got the flu, but I should go to the doc and get checked out. So you go to your doctor. You say, doctor, I feel horrible. My whole body aches. I'm spending half the day in the bathroom on the toilet. I've thrown up 3 or 4 times. I'm running a fever. I think I've got the flu. Doc, what should I do to solve that? What should I do? And your doctor says, wow, that's horrible that you've got that. You've got stomach upset. You're spending a lot of time on the toilet. Your body aches. And all he does is repeat back to you the symptoms of the thing you've already told him you have. And you listen to the doctor parrot all this stuff back to you, and you say, no, I understand what I've got, Doc. Tell me what I do to fix it. And Kamala Harris doesn't have an answer. Because she knows, unless she's a complete idiot, and she may be, because she shows signs of that, she knows what has created this massive inflation that America hasn't seen in decades. They didn't see it under Donald Trump. Supposedly, according to Democrats, Donald Trump is this pro-business guy who only cares about himself and about business and Wall Street. Well, if that's true, why didn't all these corporate greedy companies that Kamala Harris would have you believe are just raising prices for no particular reason? Not because their costs have gone up, not because government regulations gone up, not because wages have to go up when inflation goes up or you lose your workers. No, why didn't they do that under Trump? Why did they only do that under Joe Biden? When Joe Biden took office, inflation the day he took the oath was 1.4% per year. It soared under Joe Biden after about a year and a half to 9%, or about 6 times as much inflation as was present the day he took office. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden would have you believe, yeah, Trump did that. Trump made that happen. No, we think you did it. Was there massive government spending during the pandemic? Yes. Should it have ended the minute the pandemic began to end? Yes. Did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris end it and do things that would have demonstrably changed the inflation picture? If they had said to all the cities and counties and states, maybe even including Idaho, I don't know if Idaho is guilty of this or not, we shoveled out all this money to you during the emergency of the pandemic. If you haven't spent it, send it back and claw that money back. Instead, especially in the blue states, not Idaho, states like Oregon and Washington failed to spend hundreds of millions of dollars during the pandemic that was supposedly there for an emergency, but they haven't sent it back. They've just continued to spend it. That spending drives inflation. telling young men and women, we're going to pay off your college loans and you don't have to pay for them, that drives inflation. There are a lot of things that are inflation drivers. Artificially raising the price of oil by refusing to drill, refusing to build pipelines and everything else, that drives inflation. The Biden administration has driven inflation. Kamala Harris either knows or has experts around her who know what's driving it. She doesn't want to stop doing it because what does she plan to do when she gets into office? I can guess because she won't actually tell us what she plans to do. But my guess is she plans to do exactly what Joe's been doing for the last 3.5 years and do more of it. Do you think I'm wrong?
I don't. Can you stand by for a quick break, Lars?
Sure, of course.
Oh, thank you. More with our friend Lars Larson next. Kevin Miller. Larson.com. You can catch him anywhere, but you can catch him today at 4. From tape to live, our great friend Lars. So, Lars, when we take a look at...
I stand by that endorsement of Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO.
I appreciate that, sir. Could it be that, in the Pacific Northwest and in the Mountain West, people are very kind. We don't really insult people a lot, but I'm going to break that tradition by going, could it be Americans are just stupid and the TikTok generation just is going to vote for her because they like her cackle?
I guess. And you like her cackle and you hate Donald Trump. And what do you hate him for? Every time somebody calls the show, a naysayer, says, I can't believe you're voting for that guy. I say, great. Tell me 2 things. What do you hate about Trump? Well, he's a liar. Okay. If you consider, there are people I consider liars. And if I call them a liar, I'm happy to cite specific and major examples of their lies. And if I'm not willing to do that, I shouldn't be calling them a liar. They like Kamala Harris. They don't know why. They don't know where she stands. And in fact, Kevin, you know that I read both sides of the aisle. I mean, I like to read the left as well as the right. It doesn't contaminate my brain to read what the left is saying. The left is concerned about Kamala Harris not rolling out anything in the way of, well, what do you plan to do differently? And let me put this in a way, again, a metaphor, but think about it this way. If you go in and you apply for a job at a company that's having problems, and they've fired their last CEO or general manager, or whoever it happens to be, because they're failing. And when you're interviewed for this job, and they say, what would you do differently with us? You say, I'm pretty much going to run things the same way they've been running for the last couple of years here. Do you think you're going to get the job if you don't tell them what you plan to do? If, on the other hand, you take the Kamala Harris approach and the Democrat Party approach and say, I'm going to bring joy to your company. It's joy and happiness all day long, and everything will be better. You say, well, tell us how you're going to make it better. Well, it's just going to be joy. It's going to be joy and happiness.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to get the job, Kevin, if you apply that way?
No.
And you shouldn't, because it's one thing if you walked into an already successful company whose CEO dropped dead of a heart attack and they need to replace him, and you say, boy, this place is running great. I might do a few tweaks around the outside, but pretty much I'll run it just the way it's been run if you have a well-run organization or company. But right now we have a country that is in deep trouble, and if people don't realize how bad it is, we're spending billions of dollars a day just to pay the interest on the national debt. And Joe Biden's current budget proposes borrowing $2 trillion more. So the federal government can't live within its means. Now, Kevin, all of your audience knows, I think all of us have probably been there at one point in our lives, unless we grew up rich, and I didn't grow up rich and neither did you,
right,
that if you keep spending more money than you make, at some point there's going to be a reckoning. At some point, the tow truck shows up for your car, the landlord serves you with an eviction notice, and you don't have any money in your pocket, and then you have to change the way you're living. I hope that most people, when they got close to that point, said, I'm going to start working a second job, I'm going to cut my spending down to the bare minimum, and I'm going to get myself back to spending no more than what I make, and hopefully less than what I make to put a little bit of money in savings for an emergency. If you haven't run your life that way, and we all know people who've done that, and they end up personally bankrupt, they end up getting fired, they end up with a divorce. Money is one of the biggest causes of divorce in America. So you can't run a country that way. We are trillions of dollars in debt, about $35 trillion. We have about $60 trillion in unfunded mandates, and that's a fancy congressional term for we owe a whole bunch of money on Social Security and Medicare. It isn't all due today or tomorrow, but it is coming due, and we don't have the money to pay it. And what that's going to mean within about a decade, by 2034, is that the federal government is going to have two choices: raise taxes dramatically to fund Social Security, or cut everybody's benefits by about 25%. So if you've got audience members who are currently getting a $1,000 check a month from Social Security, which is about the typical amount, it's the average amount, be prepared to live on $750. Well, why? Because the money ain't there.
Well,
and
then
there's only two ways to get it: cut the checks or increase taxes dramatically in a country where we already have high taxes. Joe Biden has driven them higher. Donald Trump and the Congress brought them down. Joe Biden wanted us to have a higher tax rate than communist China, if you can believe that.
No,
he didn't quite get there.
Right, I'm with you on that, but it's fascinating, as you brought up, and you and I seem to be the only people that bring this up. Why aren't we going back to pre-COVID levels just to start? And this insane...
That'd be a great place to start.
Right, and this insane spending, obviously everybody's happy that the stock market had a great week, then a bad week, now it's recovering, what have you, but you talk about if we don't handle that debt, those stock prices are going to go down.
Yeah, they are. And the other thing that's happening, Kevin, right now is that if you want to buy a house, you're going to pay about 6.5% mortgage interest, which is a punishing rate. It literally locks about 40 to 50% of the potential buyers out of owning a house. You say, when is going to go down? Don't know. Could be in 2 years, could be in 10. Maybe we're locked into it for a long time. That is going to lock people out of owning a home, which is one of the best ways for the average person to accumulate any kind of equity or wealth toward retirement. If you bought a home in your 20s or 30s and have it paid for by the time you retire, you've got an asset. You can sell the asset, you can live in the asset, but if you can't buy it because the interest rates are so high, when the federal government is borrowing such massive amounts of money, it crowds out the other borrowers because the government is the 9,000-pound gorilla. And the average borrower says, why can't I get money to buy a car? Or, why does it cost so much to get a loan for a car or a house? And the answer is the federal government is crowding it out. And at some point, the interest on the debt alone will eclipse the budget of the Pentagon and other budgets for things that people consider necessities from the federal government. They say, well, let's just fire a lot of people in D.C. I hope that when Trump gets in January, while I disagree with Elon Musk about plenty of things, I think he knows what to do. He walked into Twitter when he bought Twitter, and he said, I'm going to fire about 75% of you. Now, I think he ended up firing about 50% of the workforce, and the company is still running. In fact, running very well. It's suffering political attacks from all sides, but it's running well. What happens when you have a company that has far too many employees and you need to operate efficiently because, again, you have to operate within the money you take in? Twitter was operating at a loss when Elon Musk took it over. Imagine an Elon Musk going to work on the federal government, because that seems to be the job Trump would like to give him, which is figure out how to make government run efficiently. Now, there have been other efforts, but most of them are within the government. Do you remember when, I think it was Al Gore, was tasked with the mission of figuring out how to reduce government paperwork? And I think the report he came back with was 1,000 pages. And, Kevin, if you ask somebody, figure out how to reduce government paperwork, and your answer is 1,000 pages, we already know you were the wrong person to do it.
No, I so agree. Our great friend Lars Larson joining us here on KIDO Talk Radio. What do you make of the Kroger's-Albertsons merger?
You know what? I've heard people argue against it, and I don't think that they're doing it from an informed point of view. And let me tell you why. That's saying, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, here's the thing.
Right.
I know in the Northwest that we view these are two of the go-tos. Now, my wife and I shop for groceries at about 5 different stores, including Kroger, Fred Meyer, including Albertsons or Safeway. And you say, so I have 5 choices right now. In the country, I'm going to ask you, what percentage of the grocery business does Albertsons/Safeway have in America?
Was it maybe 10%?
How about 4? And then what percentage does Kroger Freddy's have?
Oh, it has to be 10.
8. So if you add the two of them together, you've got 12% of the nation. What percentage does Walmart account for?
20.
Twice that amount, 25%. So if you create a bigger player at 12% that can now arguably compete against Walmart, Amazon is becoming a gigantic grocery provider. Whether your audience members individually buy groceries from, I don't buy groceries from Amazon, but there are a lot of people who do, and you can see the writing on the wall that people are going to say, oh, you mean I don't have to go to the grocery store and walk around for an hour and pick out my groceries? I'll have them delivered to my house by Amazon. That's going to be, tell me that's not going to be attractive to at least a percentage of the buyers. So when you want to have more competition, do you want to have two small fry like 4% and 8% competing against 25%? And I'll tell you, we've had some experts on, because I'm not claiming I'm an expert, but a 12% player does not sound like a market maker. They're not running a monopoly at 12% of the marketplace. Now, there are some communities in the Northwest where you'd say, well, all we've got is Albertsons and Safeway and Freddy's. So in those communities, the merged company would be forced to divest itself, sell one of the grocery stores to somebody else, which will happen. But people should understand a couple of things. The grocery business, not dry goods and other stuff, because Freddy's sells everything. I know that. Safeway doesn't. Safeway primarily sells groceries. But in that business, the profit margin average nationwide is about 2%. That means if you walked into Albertsons or Safeways and you bought $1,000 worth of grocery, the evil corporate giant that Kamala Harris would have you believe is gouging the public gets $20 for selling you $1,000 worth of groceries. That's their profit. Now, that's a skinny margin. Restaurants average about 8%. There are other higher risk ventures that average 15%, but the grocery business is about 2%. Walmart's overall corporate return on investment. You say, well, how do you know this? I said, because Walmart is a publicly held company. It's owned by stockholders, and the company is required by law to disclose its numbers. What is their average ROI, return on investment? The answer is about 2.75%. So if you want to cut out their evil gouging, I guess the company could become a nonprofit, and prices would go down by 2.75%. That's it. That's the margin. So do I want to see more competition? Yes. Do I think merging those two would create more competition? There was some testimony. I think it was the head of Albertsons. It might have been the head of Kroger, who sat on the stand, and he said, when I'm competing against Walmart, he says, for example, there's a macaroni and cheese, little box mixes that you buy that are very popular. Tina has a bunch of them. And we're short for times like, let's make mac and cheese tonight. We'll doll it up with some chicken, but it's mac and cheese. The guy from either Kroger or Albertsons said, Walmart is selling that box of macaroni and cheese for less money than our company has to pay to buy it wholesale. Now, Kevin, how do you compete if your competition is so big? Because that's economies of scale. It means that when Walmart walks in to buy macaroni and cheese, for example, from a supplier, they say, we're going to buy 10 million boxes in the next year, or 100 million, whatever the number is, right? If you buy 10 million boxes of macaroni and cheese, do you get a better price than the guy who's only buying 1 million boxes of macaroni and cheese in a year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if you walked into Les Schwab and say, I need a new set of tires, they'll say, there's the price right there, Kevin. But if you walk in and say, I run a small trucking company, we've got 500 trucks and we need to buy a bunch of tires every single year as our tires wear out. We're willing to commit to buying 2,000 sets of tires every year. You think you get a better price than the guy or gal who walks in and buys one set of tires?
Well, yes, of course, economies of scale.
Okay, so the same thing applies on a gigantic scale when it comes to Walmart. Well, if Albertsons and Safeway and Kroger can't even buy the product at the price that Walmart is selling it for, how much competition do you have?
Well, I see your case, Lars. I see where you're going.
You tell me your perspective.
I'm all about this is going to cost people jobs and price increases.
Well, and it may,
yeah.
but Kevin, as much as I feel for the people working in a business, do you think that, say, Schwab I don't do any advertising for Schwab now. I have in years gone by. Do you think Schwab has more staff members than it needs on staff?
Sure.
Can any company afford to have a bunch of people just sitting around playing on their phone, playing solitaire on their phone, and drawing a paycheck?
Well, no.
No. And if they do have an abundance of employees, who pays their salaries?
Well, we do.
Yes, the customer does. So, I mean, look, Kevin, I'd love to be able to drive up to the gas station like in Back to the Future, because I barely remember this as a kid. You drive up and 5 guys run out. One starts putting gas in your tank. Another one's washing your windows. Somebody else is checking the air in your tires. Somebody else is popping the radiator cap, make sure you're all good to go there. Do you think you could afford the gasoline if they staffed gas stations like that today?
No, Lars. No, Lars.
No.
Hold on, Lars. We're going to agree to disagree on this one. But
okay, tell me what's wrong with merging 2 small fry so they can better compete with a big monster like Walmart. And I have nothing against Walmart. I shop there too.
Sure. No. Quite frankly, every time there's a merger, there are layoffs. We have Fred's, we have Kroger's.
And if there are layoffs, does that suggest the company had to? And go back to Elon Musk. Why do you suppose he fired 50% of the people at Twitter?
I understand that.
Just ask yourself.
I'm with you, but you asked my opinion. So my opinion is,
I know, but tell me why.
There are good people.
Should...
There are good people that are going to lose their jobs because there's going to be less competition for prices.
And if there's going to be less more competition.
Well, Lars,
how can a grocery store?
Hold on, Lars. Hold on. Lars, I got to run, but I've run out the clock on you on this one. But I this is what we love about you. We have different perspectives, but we respect you and we appreciate you, brother.
Okay, God bless you, Kevin, and I'll see what your audience says about whether or not they think a company that's run more efficiently might be able to offer better prices to its customers.
Well, they'll probably agree with you as how this goes around here, but we appreciate you, sir.
Sorry about that, Kevin.
No worries, Lars. We appreciate it. You have a great day, sir.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend, Lars Larson. We love him. Tea Party Bob next. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. We're all friendly here. Let's go to Tea Party Bob, who joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Tea Party Bob.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. I hope you had a pleasant weekend.
It was good. It was good to see you while you were visiting.
It was nice to have a visit. It doesn't matter how bad Kamala is in tonight's debate. The liberal media are going to still hail her as the winner. So they're going to try to fool some of the audience. But I think that with the high cost of food and rent and gas and the inflation of their, communities, the infiltration of their communities with the illegals, taking their jobs, most Americans will see through the phony facade of BS being spewed out by the Democrats. The debate is for Trump to lose, and all he has to do is stay on track and keep his cool. And I want to agree with Doug's comment about Petso. And for someone who has never met Trump in person, Petso's comments about Trump not being a nice person just shows me a little about his character. I've known Trump, and he is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. Just don't screw with him in business. He actually cares about the people. Look at what he's doing, what he did for the 4 years he was president. He's very good with the people who work for him. He goes out there, he talks to them, he finds out what their problems are. He is just a man who cares about the people who work for him and the people he serves. It's much like his campaign. He goes out, he talks to everybody, he asks for comments, never turns down an invitation to talk. When you live and work in New York City for a long time, you have to develop a thick skin if you want to survive. I know, I've been there, I've done that. Dave reminds me of some liberal commentators who form opinions without any real information. Trump gave us 4 of the greatest years of economic growth and international stability that could only be matched by President Reagan. He has endured endless attacks of lawfare, been shot by an assassin. And, what more does he have to do to prove that he really cares? He stands up for our freedoms and our Constitution. So anyone else would have given up a long time ago. So I say to Dave, don't judge a book by its cover. Read through it first. And on the election, if Trump keeps his cool tonight, he will win the debate. And the election, as people actually see what Kamala is all about and how phony she is. Now, right now, he's projected to take a good majority of the electoral votes. And I think that having Kennedy join his campaign was a stroke of brilliance, as I believe Kennedy will add between 4 and 8% of independent and Democratic voters. One more thing. I agree with you, and I don't agree with Lars. And while he has some salient points on the Kroger-Albertson merger, it's still going to cause a lot of dislocations with job cuts and store closings. So as far as I'm concerned, I hope they kill it. I thank you very much for my time, Mr. Miller, and hope you have a great day today.
Thank you, Tea Party Bob. More of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Hello, Kevin. Well, speaking of Dorothy and small businesses, I've got your back with Lars.
Fair enough.
He is wrong. Okay? I got you covered here. So I'm going to give you an example. Your wife owns a small business, correct?
She does.
And she processes credit cards, and that costs her money, right?
Yes.
She pays a fee. Okay, I'm not going to guess, nor am I, I'll just say, obviously, her volume on a monthly basis is not like, let's just say, a car dealership. We're one of those dealerships through their bays, and if they have multiple ones, but let's just take one, they probably process $1 million a month on a credit card. So what do you think? Who do you think should get the better rate?
Right, the person with more volume.
No. So let me tell you why. 85%.
By the way, between you and Lars asking me questions, I'm not really a big fan of Ask Kevin Miller stuff. But anyway, just kidding. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
I'm making it interactive, more interesting, engaging.
Okay. Hold on. Thank you for that too, Mike. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm helping you out on 2 levels here, Kevin. Okay. So they're leading questions. So you're right. Almost all small business owners think they should pay more, and they cannot get the same rate as the car dealership. But here's the fact. Because it's all technology, not a labor-intensive thing, the wholesale cost of that transaction is the same, whether it comes from the issuing bank. If I have this Capital One cards and get a gazillion points, they need to get their money. And so when a transaction comes through and they got to give me my points for that credit card transaction, they don't care if I put that card down or in the slot at a car dealership or a coffee shop. It's the same. And that's almost 85% of the cost. So basically, there's no reason, give or take, there's some nuances, but there's no reason that your wife shouldn't have a similar rate or close enough to that car dealership. But none of small businesses know that. And so, but the same principle applies to Lars's, 1 million boxes of Kellogg's cereal. Okay, it's sitting in the same warehouse at Kellogg's. And so are they shipping it out to, it's a supply chain thing. Does it matter to them that it all goes to Walmart? Well, it's going to all these locations. So what's the difference between that and going to more stores for that same volume? So when technology comes in, I'm just trying to sum it up, all this, economies of scale stuff kind of can go out the window. A lot of it's intended to. So who gets the profit? Who gets the profit? It's not, everybody assumes I'm the small guy, I shouldn't get a good deal. But when you look at it with some of these things, yeah, you should. And then somebody can come in and compete on that level, educate them, and give your wife almost the same rate as that car dealership and still be happy. But they don't do that. So it kind of his argument breaks down a bit.
Well, look, the godless, greedy corporations don't care about you or I. And I will tell you that I have a lot of close friends that work in the grocery business. I admire them because that's not an easy business. And tell me when has there been a merger where jobs have not been lost, and where has there been a merger where it's gotten better for the consumer?
I don't know. You caught me on that one. Nothing comes to mind.
Well, Mike, we appreciate the call. Thank you.
Sure. Bye.
Bye-bye. John in Cambridge, Idaho, with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. John, thank you for the call.
Well, thank you for taking my call, Lars, or Kevin.
It's okay, buddy. It's just you and me, brother.
I want to say that I disagree with you that the Republicans need to be the bigger man in their comments.
I understand that.
Let's say you go to a bar, okay, and some drunken idiot just comes up to you and smacks you in the face. Okay,
yes.
I'm serious.
I know you are.
Okay?
I know. Yeah.
You're going to play the bigger man and say, "Oh, he's just drunk, no big deal," and he does it again. At what point in time do you say, you know what, you're being a real jerk, and hit him back? You had mentioned, I think it was last week, about Jesse Waters needs to pull back on his comments or the way he's saying stuff. Why? The Democrats have been bad-mouthing and belittling and, lying about Trump and the rest of us for years now. At what point in time do we hit back and hit back hard? The old line that treat others the way you want to be treated, at some point in time, that ends. The Democrats want to treat us like garbage. They want to just lie. They want to tell us that we're wrong. They want to tell Trump that he's a racist. None of that is true. We know that. So at what point in time do we say, you know what, guys? You guys are wrong here, and slam them as hard as we can. They want to play the game this way. They want to treat us like that. Well, then guess what? You need to be ready for the repercussions and the hit back. And that's the way it is. If you want to get your point across and you want to get people to listen at this point in time, do it in a way that they cannot ignore. And that's where I'm at with that.
Well, I agree with you to a degree. I just think if you want to win the election, you got to give them the honey.
Well, if that's the point, then I think we're kowtowing to what they want. And if Fox News was to come down on Jesse and say, you need to do this differently, Fox News might lose a viewer in me.
Well, now, why do you bring up Jesse Waters? And I'm not attacking you, John. I'm just asking you, sir.
Because you had said, I think it was last week, that he's the comment that he made about Kamala being
the generals would have their way with her. Yes.
The generals would have their way with them. Anybody with common sense knows exactly what he was saying.
Yeah, but you see, but that proves my point, my friend. You can't allow the double entendre to go out into the public. And to his credit, he caught it because he knew he would be under fire. Now, Democrats can say anything they want, but Republicans, hey, man, you're this, you're that, you're everything else.
But at what point do we not get the hit back? At what point do we have to say, or can we say, you guys are just this and just that? Playing the bigger guy only works to a point, Kevin.
All right.
After that, it's time. It's time to come at them with guns blazing. And they are going to keep their game up to the point that no return. I think it's time that the Republicans come out with their guns blazing. And
again, see, this is a real discussion here on KIDO Talk Radio. So the problem here at KIDO Talk Radio is then you have Republicans like the Cheneys that are traitors. And look, the Tea Party exposed this where they don't like our kind.
But the Cheneys have been traitors for how many years now?
Exactly. John, thank you for the call. Liberal Steve joining us now on KIDO Talk Radio. We ask you, do not leave the program, but this is diversity, equity, and inclusion from a political perspective. Diversity, political thought. Good morning.
Oh, my God. Where did that come out of left field?
Keep you guessing.
Yeah. Who was that whiner that was just on? And then Dougie. Good Lord. I figured that going through everything he did with the stint and everything, he might soften up a little bit, but he just come out all guns a-blazing this morning.
People thought the same thing. People thought the same thing about you.
Well, I'll tell you what. You get too close to me, I'll punch you right in the face. Down you go. Everybody has an answer until they get punched right in the face. Yeah. What's with that Charlie Kirk anyway? Do you follow him?
I'm aware of Charlie.
Oh, God. Did you see what he said yesterday? That does sound like Doug now. Yesterday? He said she's going to come up with a surprise bombshell at the debate today.
Terry from State College, Pennsylvania. What a blowhard windbag. I think he's talking about you.
Gary, you don't even have the guts to call in and challenge me anymore. You're such a baby.
You do have a point. You do have a point. We don't. He doesn't call in anymore.
I don't think his wife lets him call in anymore. You know, she rules the roost at that place. So what Kamala, according to Charlie Kirk, is going to say, she's going to say she had an abortion during the debate, that she was raped.
Why are you giving us the best of the Charlie Kirk show?
I'm not. I'm just saying, who would say something like that? And you're predicting it right here, Mr. Miller. You heard it here, and you heard it from the lips of wisdom, the lips of Libby Steve. I predict that Donnie walks off the stage tonight, and they got to jump to a commercial and then come back and say, "Oh, Mr. Trump had to go potty or something, but he's not coming back." I guarantee it, he's going to walk off 5 minutes into the debate because she's going to light him up like a you-know-what. Oh, Lord, it's going to be great. And what's with Dave Petso? Just because he's got a little money in his pocket, does he think he's like as rich as Crapo and Risch and all them now? Does he hang with them guys up in Donnelly and McCall and Spun Valley? Where do they hang out together to scheme how they're going to rip Idahoans off from taxes on their groceries? Good God, that state is so poor. They get more federal money in Idaho.
Sideways Kid in Weezer with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin.
We have to apologize for the tune out there. He just, I guess he was lonely. He must have missed me for a while.
Yeah, well, wanted to let you know he's talking. Steve Young was talking about Bill Walsh's theory about love and how he spread that to the players. Let me see if I can try and stay on track and do this quickly. I got a firsthand watch of doing that. My ex-wife, when I lived in the Bay Area, my ex-wife worked at a big company called United States Leasing Corporation. And she was out to a vendor lunch. The vendor had to leave on an emergency, and she was waiting for her table. And a guy comes over and says, "Well, I've got a table," because he walks in and they seat him immediately. And she says, "Well, okay, it's Joe Montana." He was supposed to be meeting his ex-wife Jennifer there to finalize their divorce. So my wife gets picked up by Joe Montana at lunch. And so she said, he seemed like a very nice man. He had everybody, she didn't know who he was, because everybody kept coming over and asking for autograph, but he was wearing this gaudy jewelry, this gaudy ring. And I finally told her what was going on. And she says, oh, that's nice. She said, well, he said he was going to come up to the office. I'm thinking, all right, what's this all about? Well, what he did was, there was a charity that they had there. It was like similar to Make-A-Wish, except for it was on Christmas, and it was for special kids that were terminal. And Walsh was the coach at the time. He was the coach at the time, and he brought up Jerry Rice and Lott. They brought gifts up to this corporate office for all of these kids and stayed there to have their Christmas, their Santa Christmas thing up there. And that was all part of Walsh's doing with those guys. He had that they lived it. He had it instilled in them, and they lived it every day. So that's what Young was talking about, and I've seen it in action, and it's pretty special.
I'll tell you, it was very powerful. I've only known Steve Young from watching him on television, and when you have somebody like Steve Young, you just get out of his way. And unlike a lot of people that we talk to, and it's no disrespect to people, but you could hear Steve Young actually kept thinking about the question as opposed to just reciting something.
Well, the other thing is that a lot of people don't know. He is the ultimate example, a poster boy for focus. He gets out of high school, and instead of going directly to BYU, he goes on his mission. Then he goes to the university, and then his football career, and then like you said, he's going to law school in the off season. Talk focus. Most of really good college players that go on their mission, or high school players that go on their mission, they lose their skills and they lose their focus, and they're on to the rest of their life. But he stayed focused through that whole thing, and that to me is amazing.
Well, and his charitable foundation and just the lesson. I mean, we can all relate to getting mad at people in traffic, and it was just so relatable and bringing it home. I could have asked him about Jim McMahon and everything else, but you try to go for the deep funnel when you have somebody of that stature.
Yeah, well, it was a good interview. I'm glad it came on, and it brought back some really positive things that I remember in my life. That those, a lot of the football players they do stuff for show, but the fact that he had the influence, that Walsh had the influence with Montana, Rice, and Lott to go do that, and there was no press, no coverage, nothing. They just came and did it because they wanted to. So what he was talking about, Walsh being that influence in his life, that absolute truth, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
My best to everybody in Weezer.
Will do, buddy.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Appreciate that. Dr. Harper joins us on KIDO Talk Radio, live from the White House. Good morning, Dr. Harper.
Hello, Kevin. It's great to join you, and I wish I say I'm at the White House right now, but here in Boise, Idaho. I did have some intense experiences, catching the Biden administration off guard and some questions regarding Israel, and I was asking a question about why is the U.S. pressuring Israel to make concessions and basically say we're not pressuring Israel, but that's what's really happening. That's one issue I wanted to share, Kevin. It's very unique experience that I'm having there. I'm very thankful for to make a difference. But we're going to mention about Kamala Harris, the comments about had an interview with a psychiatrist, forensic psychiatrist, Dr.
Well,
Carol
Dr.
Lieberman.
Harper, we got about 30 seconds. So what would you like to say about the debate tonight?
Well, I wanted to say about the debate, as long as President Trump keeps it on task to the issues, and I hope he does, then he will be successful, and I wish him the best.
All right, Dr. Harper, we wish you the best. Glad that you're back in Boise. Dr. Harper, of course, the publisher and editor of Intermountain Christian News. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Do appreciate everybody listening. Don't forget Clay and Buck coming up. Also, Sean Hannity, Lars Larson coming up tomorrow. We will remember September 11th, obviously. Where were you when the towers fell? And we will talk about the debate as well. We will do our very best to honor all those who have served.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
God bless America and all those who have fought to keep us free and their families. Keep the faith, everybody. Kevin Miller loves you.